friends, my name is Rachel GNS Middle. Gilbert and Sullivan is my middle name and my middle name is my last name. And we are here on behalf of Forbear Theatre to explore the magic of the Gilbert and Sullivan operas by very pedantically ranking every element of them. And, this is very awkward, today we are doing a very special one. I'm not really going to be a part of this one, and that will become clear momentarily.
Well, obviously your head is giant. What is going on? Why is your head so big compared to ours?
It was all the brains.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah, I often wish I had some myself. They don't get that reference.
I do.
Because they don't... Okay, so, the reason I've got these guys in is because today what we are going to discuss is nothing to do with the music, or the dialogue, or kind of the characters, but only very tenuously. What we are discussing today is how good the story is, or like in theatre language, the book. And we're going to do that by taking these two completely untainted by GNS minds. I know what you're thinking. Rachel, how have you got friends that don't know anything about Gilbert and Sullivan? Like, what are they, total psychopaths? Well, let's let them introduce themselves and how they know me and how little they know about Gilbert and Sullivan.
Hello. My name is Emma Niall. I am a friend of Rachel Middle's. I met her last year on a tour of Othello that we were doing. And I met Rachel while she was directing a GNS opera, but so I saw some of the score and I saw some of the book that she had with her in the van while we were touring. That is all I know. I also know that there is one opera called HMS Pinafore.
Correct.
There we go.
Correct.
My knowledge.
That's what I was going to say. Yes, my name is Spencer Osborne. I was lucky enough to work with Rachel, and this one over here as well, and this one here. Yay! That's where I learned of Rachel's love for GNS. But I don't really know anything about Gilbert and Sullivan. In fact, I always actually mix them up with Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Easy to
as
do.
Well.
Very easy to do.
Because they're just two people that make songs, I guess. So yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm tripping over a bike wheel. So, the way... Oh, you can't use my mouth.
There we are.
You see half of my face. There we go. I like that.
The Gabrielle.
So, this is so good. So what we're going to do today is so to even further prevent any of my kind of biases getting in the way, Dan, who has seen maybe each one of them once and been in two of them, he has written synopses, with the exception of the Grand Duke, which I did have to write because we ran out of time. But he will put his own spin on it, I'm sure, as he reads it out. So Dan has actually written all these synopses. He's not really formed his opinion on which one is his favourite
I'm still
yet.
very new.
And actually, maybe we can talk about, like, maybe which ones are your favourites as we go as well.
Oh,
but this means that these two will be then giving each one a mark out of 50. So totally separately from each other. You may have very different opinions, but we're going to add those together to get, like, a final result. So we're giving them each a mark out of 10 for concept, like overall concept. Like, maybe even if you didn't think it was executed well, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. That idea's got legs. The second category is topsy-turviness / comedy. Now, you guys may not really have heard the phrase topsy-turvy, or at least how it relates to Gilbert and Sullivan. Basically, all the Gilbert and Sullivan operas have an element of ludicrousness. Like the stakes are messed up, or like someone's in power that shouldn't be, or something's reversed, or like people are switched at birth, or like there's lots of conventions which just involve like magic or ludicrousness, but it's all treated in like a very matter-of-fact way, and that's where a lot of the humour comes from. So mark for 10 for just comedy, but general kind of funny wackiness. And then also a mark out of 10 for clarity / sense. Like, how much does this make sense to you? Do you think if you're watching this, you think, oh, I could then easily relay that story to somebody? That's where we're going to fall down. Then dramatic potential out of 10. That's like, ooh, do you think that'll be like a really like punchy opera? Do you think that'll make like a really dramatic moment, like when this person says they love this person? Will you go, oh my goodness? Like, how invested do you think you would be in this story? Like, do you think it's a really good dramatic emotional story? Then actually the last category, I bet that has actually got emotional in it. The last category is meaning today / emotional prevalence. And that's how well you think this story would hold up today as an opera. So, because our mission at Forbear Theatre is to try and make these operas fresh and give them to a new generation by trying to show just how timeless they are. But I do think that some are better in this category than others. So those are your categories. I am going to let Dan go ahead and start you off. I will be right here behind the camera, just in case Dan makes any errors. And also maybe if I find a conversation struggling a little bit, I will maybe come in with some ideas and points and questions. But I think you guys are going to be fine. Because you haven't even said that you're actors. Like, this is the reason I trust these guys to know about story. Because these guys...
Oh my!
Because these guys are storytellers. And they know what a good story is. Because they tell stories for a living.
Greece.
Lightning.
Number 1 is THESPIS, or the Gods Grown Old. Over to you, Dan.
Gather round, children. There's something off about Mount Olympus. Has it always been this chilly? Diana seems to think so. Her brother Apollo is finding it harder and harder to get up in the morning and is taking the day off. Mars can no longer hear the drums and trumpets of battle, or much of anything else for that matter. The only one not feeling any of these mysterious symptoms is Mercury. As a result, he is being made to run around doing all the gods' work for them, and he is not pleased. There's no getting around it. The gods are old. They need a holiday to revitalise themselves, but the world won't just run itself, you know. Or will it? Up the slopes of Mount Olympus comes a troupe of actors, led by their director, and apparently the first actor ever, THESPIS. They're here for a celebratory picnic in honour of 2 of their casts, Sparkion, which sounds like a Pokemon, and Nesimus. Nesimus? Am I pronouncing that right?
Nicemus.
Nicemus. Well, they're not very nice. Things are not going well. The happy couple are at each other's throats and flirting with exes to make each other jealous. And none of the company have brought any worthwhile food. Actors cheap? What? And they've asked the recovering alcoholic to bring the wine. So, yeah. And to top it all off, now there's a whole bunch of gods everywhere. Everyone does the sensible thing when faced with literal gods and runs away screaming, except for THESPIS, who is so far up his own proverbial that he actually believes himself on the same level as these divine beings. Jupiter is impressed by his courage, or indeed ignorance, and asks whether he and his pantheon are still considered impressive. To which Thespis replies,
Oh no.
But he also has a solution. He advises the gods do what actors do when they're unsure of public opinion. Go on tour and see for yourself what the world thinks of you. And many of the gods really like this idea. Pluto could definitely use a tan. Vulcan needs to get out more. But who will watch over Olympus and govern the world of men while they're away? As you can probably guess, Thespis has an answer for that too. His troupe excels at taking on large and difficult roles with very little notice, and not one of them would turn down the role of being a god. So the deal is struck. The gods give the actors all their powers and authority, pack their sunscreen, and head off down the mountain. Except poor Mercury, who they leave behind as a consultant.
Oh no!
Needless to say, he's not happy about missing the holiday. A year passes. The crumbling buildings of Olympus stand proud and splendid again. Under Thespis' direction, it's never looked better. Although he's given the gods a lot more free rein than the old ones. Diana and Apollo now cross the sky at the same time, resulting in several famines and tidal waves. The new Father Time has decided to remove Saturday from the universe, but Sunday refuses to come on duty early, meaning it's been Friday afternoon in November for the last 6 months. Battles have been abolished by the new pacifist Mars, resulting in constant conflict between nations, because fighting was the only reason they ever spoke to each other. Not to mention, many of the couples in the cast are finding they're now related a little too closely for comfort. The gods return for a review and are not pleased, as Mercury, with no small satisfaction, reads the extensive list of complaints and issues, each more ridiculous and disastrous than the last. The final nail in the coffin is to discover that there is no wine, because A, all the grapes in the land are now full of ginger beer, and upside down, and the new Bacchus is a teetotaler.
Obsessed.
Jupiter is furious and demands the actors leave Olympus forever, cursing them and all who bear the name of Thespian to be irrelevant peddlers of tragedy and drama who nobody will ever go to see. Sound familiar?
Don't know what you're
See.
talking about.
I love this. Right,
So that's Thespis.
onto a good start with Thespis. I want to watch it.
I think so, actually.
I've already decided. Meaning, wait, do we say what we're gonna do?
Yeah, no, just have a chat about
Oh,
it.
you've already got numbers.
No, only for meaning today. I've given.
We're going to go through them all, and you'll probably forget by the time we get to 14.
Like, what I would do is I would give them some rudimentary numbers, and then you can always kind of fiddle around as you go. Like think, I gave that a 10, but this one's actually much funnier, so I'm going to make that.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so you can. That's why I gave you an eraser.
That's why the rubber is here.
Classic rubber. Classic rubber.
Yeah, right.
So like, tell me, like, I mean, so it seems that you were kind of giggling at quite a lot of that, but like, how do you think that would come across to like a modern audience?
I think it's incredibly relevant.
Yeah.
I think it's got so many themes that are like timeless. So, for example, the overreaching of Thespis it's Promethean. It's also Lucifer. So it's all of these old stories rolled into one. But then also the idea, all of these people are so familiar. You know, like we know the gods of Mount Olympus, and to think of the topsy turviness of them.
They're all wonderfully imperfect, aren't they?
Yeah.
There's nothing idealised about
Absolutely.
them. They're all
Such fun roles to play as well.
Oh yeah.
And as soon as
As
you said
actors,
Matt,
also
it's
like
Tito.
we know people who are so up their own proverbial
Yeah.
that they probably would see themselves. as
I wasn't
equal.
sure what the watershed mark for this.
Emotion, dramaticness. Like, do you imagine? Can you imagine that story moving you?
I don't know about moving, unless maybe there's like a little small moment, maybe like 2/3 of the way through, where one of the gods has like left and they realise actually, I really loved what I was doing before. and don't need like the holiday and stuff. Maybe
It
something
would have
like
been
that.
nice. Would have been nice actually.
It might be a nice little moment,
yeah.
but I feel like this is too.
Yeah, sadly
It's not
there's
fast.
there's very little kind of
Wait.
weight. It's
Okay,
very
alright.
It's light
Yeah.
entertainment.
It feels like
Yeah, so
it feels like a rock.
yeah.
That's what it feels like.
But yeah, no, overall, it seems like you like the overall concept of
It's
that.
scored,
I love
it's
the
scored
concept.
highly for me, I have to say.
Yeah.
The only thing that I've put kind of low down on the rating is clarity.
Yep, that's.
Because-
Oh wow.
If you think that's
that one's unclear.
That's one of the clearer ones.
Number 2. HMS.
No.
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 I always think Pinafore comes after Thespis. Number 2 is Trial by Jury.
Yes. Ready for a legal drama? Here we go.
Always.
We find ourselves at the court of the Exchequer.
He loves it.
It is 10 a.m. and an usher explains the situation to us.
Usher.
We are to. Yes. I can now only imagine Usher playing that role.
I need it.
We are here to hear a case of breach of marriage promise.
Ooh.
The usher goes on to say that we need to pay very close attention to the poor plaintiff, who is extremely distressed by the proceedings. You don't need to listen to the defendant because he's a ruffian, but above all else, you must make your judgment free of any kind of bias. The defendant, Edwin, arrives to a very hostile atmosphere. I cannot imagine why. And he explains that he left the plaintiff because she became exceedingly straining and dull and has since taken up with another woman.
Legend.
The jury... Yes! Correct. The jury collectively remember their wild days of youth when they might have done something similar. But now they are very respectable and have very little sympathy. The judge comes in, bangs his gavel, and tells the story of how he became a judge, which is apparently legal practice in this courtroom. Apparently, he dated a rich attorney's daughter, who aided his legal career until he was rich, at which point he promptly dumped her and became a judge. Hypocrisy. Finally, the plaintiff, Angelina, arrives. She comes in her wedding dress, and at once everyone in the room is in love with her. Her counsel recounts the tale of Edwin's betrayal, a story so distressing that Angelina faints not once but twice.
Nice.
Once into the arms of the foreman and then again into the arms of the judge, which I think is quite impressive as he's usually up on a tall platform. Edwin counters by saying his behaviour fits in perfectly with the laws of nature, but he's willing to make a compromise. He offers to marry both Angelina and his new mistress. That way everyone's happy. Council reminds us that since the days of James II, it's been a crime to own 2 wives at once, calling Edwin's suggestion not so much bigamy as burglary. Angelina's had quite enough at this point and throws herself at Edwin, declaring how much she loved him and all the various damages he has caused, all of which she would like to be compensated for financially. Edwin counters back that he's a really horrible human who drinks and fights and smokes, and by cutting their union short, he has spared her suffering and should therefore pay less. The judge has an idea for an experiment to get Edwin drunk to prove how vile he is, but nobody likes that idea. And finally, he is sick of the debate and declares the judge shall marry Angelina himself. This revelation solves everything. Angelina now has a rich husband, Edwin is free, and the courtroom celebrates as the gavel is banged.
Listen, I didn't see it coming.
Wow. Left field.
Twisted.
Right?
No, that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, Topsy Turvy was getting a bit of a low score until the end. Hey.
Don't worry, there's more of that to come.
Wait, but what happened to Angelina's partner that she went off with? Or am I getting it mixed up with Edwin?
Edwin's got a new partner.
Edwin got a
So
new
he's
partner.
free to go with the new
Angelina
partner.
got with the new lady.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, you know, sometimes she
confused.
does, in some versions I've seen.
That's awesome. Okay, there's a lot to take in there.
There is, yes.
It may be worth saying, just for reference, that the others are full-length operas, but this one was designed as to be a curtain raiser. So this one would usually precede another longer opera. This one's only about 35 minutes long.
Oh, that makes
Okay.
it
So that might kind of
Like a double feature at the
slightly-
Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit of fun. Yeah, because it didn't seem that deep.
Yeah.
In terms of the concept and things like that. So, you know,
No, that's fair. That's
gets an
fair.
average score for me.
This is fair.
Yeah, no, I buy that.
How about kind of relevance today, modern audiences?
I think with the rise of like polyamory and all this stuff, you know, finding your right partner, I feel like it can still tell us things about today
Yeah.
in terms of that search for something that's right for you. But, you know, even though the situation is kind of not directly applicable. So I'd give it a 7.
Okay.
Give it a 7 for meaning today.
Alrighty.
What do you think about that, Emily?
I don't know.
Get a thought face on.
I'm going a little bit lower just because of the
Okay.
courtroom setup. Like, I think it's great for drama, but I think that I immediately go Victorian when I think of like the marriage test and these couples clashing and having that lens into an unhappy marriage in that sort of setup. I don't know. It immediately feels dated to me, but. All of the themes, you're right. They could be applicable today, but I think it is just.
There is a lot about it that seems very of its time, isn't it?
Right. And if the judge is like, I will solve it by marrying her.
Well,
then I'm
yeah.
Ridiculous.
Which, like, I'm sad.
A pattern you will start to notice is that most of these stories get solved by a simple technicality.
Well, but then Spen's right, because then that makes it go quite high up and topsy-turvy.
Oh yeah.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
It gets topsy-turvy.
Yeah, it's getting
You wait
strong
till you
line.
get to the next one. The next one's got.
But I feel like do you know what?
Clarity it's doing good. It's doing well. It's pretty
Was
clear.
was it clear?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's so short and so tightly focused that it's very difficult to wander off topic.
Yeah, and also 35 minutes dramatic potential. There's a lot of fainting. I love that.
Oh yes, lots of fainting, comedic fainting, the best kind of fainting.
Number 3 is The Sorcerer.
The Sorcerer.
My favourite name so far.
The village of Ploverley has never seen such celebration as this. The betrothal of Alexis Poindexter and Aline Sangazur, I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Poindexter Sangazur.
Sangazur, thank you. Only young Constance seems unhappy. But then, if you were madly in unrequited love with your local vicar, Dr. Daly, as I'm sure many of you have been, you would be sad too. As the doctor explains to us, he's been very unlucky in love and just cannot believe a pretty young Constance would ever be interested in him. As the party starts, we meet a few characters, Sir Marmaduke, Alexis's father, and Lady Sangazur, Aline's mother, who are obviously into each other. But then Alexis takes Aline aside and explains a little plan he's concocted. He has always been a firm believer that love such as theirs could level all ranks and social classes, and he's come up with a way to prove his theory. He introduces her to a shadowy figure known as Mr. John Wellington Wells, a powerful and well-respected sorcerer. As you might expect, Aline isn't too keen on the idea of real witchcraft in their midst. Alexis insists he will defend her with his strong right arm. This is my left. But but she rightfully counters that Wells could probably turn her into a guinea pig before he could turn around. Nonetheless, the plan is laid. Wells will brew a powerful love potion that will be fed to the entire village and will cause everyone to fall in love with the first person they clap eyes on. Sound familiar, anyone? Though, of course, it will not affect married people. There are limits. This is a friendly show. The sorcerer concocts his mixture with the assistance of imps, demons, unicorns, elves, jackalopes, lions, tigers, bears, reindeer, rupels, griffins, vultures, and all manner of other things. And the potion is added to the communal teapot. And after the whole town experiences the trippiest hallucinations they've ever had, they all fall into a deep slumber. As the clock strikes midnight, the villagers wake from their sleep and immediately fall in love with the first person of the opposite sex they see. Because, of course, falling in love with someone of the same sex is totally ridiculous. Can you imagine? Naturally, most of the new couples are hilariously mismatched. Constance has ended up with some elderly notary, for example. But Alexis doesn't seem too bothered. In fact, he's quite proud of the chaos he's created. So to make his evening complete, he asks Aline to drink the potion and seal their love forever. Aline does not like this idea. The whole point of this was to show everyone else the love that they had. Why should she need a magic potion to guarantee their union? Alexis is not sensibly responding to this. He is very offended by this very reasonable argument, causing their whole relationship into question, and she flees in tears. However, when he catches sight of his father, currently all over a lower-class lady, he decides to bury the hatchet. Wells is looking out over the chaos he's made and is having second thoughts. It's not helped by the fact Lady Sangazure has fallen in love with him and is chasing him all over the party with various weaponry. Aline has decided to drink the potion after all and has fallen in love with Dr. Daly by mistake and his magnificent tin whistle. Unable to take it anymore, Alexis begs the sorcerer to end the madness. But of course, where magic is concerned, it's never that simple. The potion was made by the blessing of a demon named Arimanes. In order to break it, Alexis or Wells must die. The village is quite tired of being in love with the wrong people and angrily turn on the outsider. And under pressure from the public, Wells accepts his fate. There is a bang, flash, a fierce tongue of flame, and he is gone. With the spell broken, everyone couples up with their true loves and the party resumes. Now, there is an alternative ending performed by some companies, where Alexis is recognised as the villain he is. He's the one who started all of this and has screwed everything up. There is a flash, a puff of smoke, the smell of brimstone, and Alexis is gone, replaced by a small, trembling guinea pig. The villagers celebrate, Aline is much happier and better off, and Alexis munches nervously upon a carrot.
It's the guinea pig.
It's the guinea pig.
It's the guinea pig. It's the guinea pig.
The Meerschweinchen.
I'll point out that the guinea pig is not canon. It's very much an alternative ending done by some companies, so
I'm going to put 10.
try not to make that a linchpin in your decision.
Ooh. You're giving the alternative ending as well.
Yes, in a tea
Extra note.
What do you think of that one?
I'm torn with that one.
I'm torn too. I think that if they got rid of the rule of the potion where it was gender specific, the love, then I'd be way more keen to be like, that's a great show.
Well, that's a really easy thing to fix.
That's a very
to be
easy
honest.
fix,
Yeah.
and certainly that's what I would do if I was directing this with a big cast.
And then if we're going for meeting today in that sense, then I'd be like, yes, absolutely. Like I think that would be really fun.
Yeah.
That would be... the only change for me though with meaning today. Because
Yeah.
I feel like any time with these things, with love gone wrong or whatever, there needs to be some sort of like organic feeling or emotion that you can connect to.
Yeah.
Like it reminds me of Midsummer Night's Dream.
Well, yeah.
And a lot of the problems there is that none of the shit gets resolved by the potions. The
Yeah.
feelings, the natural feelings that these people have don't really get resolved by the potion. So it ends up feeling unfinished, and I feel like
Well,
maybe that might be the case with this.
I may not be
could be.
describing it very well, but a lot of the theme in the beginning of The Sorcerer is a lot of people are in love, but for one reason or another can't have the other person.
Yeah,
And
I like
I
the
like-
Constance story.
It's possible that, I mean, it can
Love
be done
Actually.
in a way that by going through this, by having the potion and by falling in love with the wrong people, it's given these people the kick up the bum they needed to
see.
be with the right people. You know?
Okay.
I mean, it's just my interpretation, but
No, but that's it. I think with all of these things, it's how it's depicted and how you see it, like how the action plays out, the nuance in it adds the value.
Well,
in
of
these
course,
situations.
yeah.
Because
That's
do I
true.
believe your story? Do I believe your problem? Do I
Quite.
believe your love?
yeah.
I think the importance of class in The Sorcerer, I don't know if that maybe came across so much in your synopsis, but
no, I had to.
there's
sort of
very
say that
much a class divide that's visually obvious from the moment the chorus come on stage. So there'll be upper class. I'm doing quotations for the sake of the video.
And the service
There'll be
stuff.
like upper class people and decidedly lower class people, and the idea of them falling in love is ludicrous.
Yeah.
And the way that and of course we don't have any dialogue to present to you, but the way that the upper class people talk about lower class people is it's hilariously patronising in a way that's very obviously lampooning the upper classes,
Right.
which is maybe something that didn't quite get across in a synopsis, but there's a lot about class in there. It just depends how much you think that would be relevant today, like class as a concept.
Sorry, I would have put it in, but if
That's all right.
I got to cut some things out, or we'll be here all day.
No.
I reckon yes, but also I think it's quite neatly resolved at the end by like the dissolution of the potion and the scapegoating, and like I think it tidies itself up. So I think that class is always relevant, especially in the UK. But I think because the story seems to tidy itself up so neatly and go and revert back to the status quo. I think it sounds like it's made a lot of people think about love differently,
Yeah.
but not necessarily social structure.
I think it's quite a clear piece. I feel like it's probably the clearest.
Yeah. I'm
Thus
giving it-
far, I agree, yeah.
It gets a 9.
Concept. I'm gonna give you a 6.
Yeah, I gave it a 7.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It
It's a
works.
fine concept.
It
works.
We know it. Meaning today also gets a 6.
Alrighty.
Okay.
There is a version of this show in a very, very old draft. I think Rachel's told me about it, where the demon is actually a character.
Ah,
Okay.
Yeah, because in some versions, and certainly when I do it again, I'm going to use this. There's actually a scene that's been written but not set to music, where Aramanes comes and like challenges John Wellington Wells in the second act and is saying like, "What have you done?
What the hell have you done here?"
That's cool.
Yeah.
Like Mephistopheles from
Yeah,
Faustus.
yeah. So there's lots of cool stuff. Oh, sorry, I won't prejudice you, but certainly, it's yeah. Well, you've said it, not me. Number 4 is HMS Pinafore.
Hey!
The one I've heard of.
The one you've heard of.
Did you do it on purpose?
No, that's the order.
Number 4 is
HMS
HMS
Pinafore. No, that is a wonderful coincidence.
No.
The HMS Pinafore is at anchor off Portsmouth Harbour, and the crew are happily performing their dutiful work. They are equally enthusiastic to welcome on board a local merchant known only as Little Buttercup. I won't ask why she's called that.
Oh, we know.
Well, this has gone down to the gutter. As she's selling her wares, we meet a scruffy sailor named Dick Deadeye, who seems to have the collective ire and revulsion of the crew, although nothing he says or does suggests he's a bad man. But Buttercup suddenly notices a young sailor in the rigging, and seems to carry a dark secret about him. This is Rafe Rackstraw, smartest lad in all the fleet, and hopelessly in love with the captain's daughter, Josephine. The crew are of course sympathetic, but as Dick Deadeye says, that's just the way of things. Common sailors can't marry noble ladies. Out onto the deck steps Captain Corcoran, the proud and popular captain of the Pinafore, who is never sick at sea. Well, hardly ever. The crew happily greet their commanding officer before returning to work, but Buttercup notices something in Corcoran's bearing and asks him to confide in her. The captain confesses that yes, he is sad and sorry. He has arranged for his daughter to be married to Sir Joseph Porter, KCB, First Sea Lord, head of the Royal Navy.
Oh, damn.
This is proper marriage here. But ever since he told her, she's been really miserable and he can't think why. Josephine enters, sad as ever, and confesses to her father, that's her, that she cannot love Sir Joseph, no matter how hard she tries, because she already loves a common sailor on board the ship. I wonder who that could be.
Go on, Josephine.
A grand barge pulls up alongside the Pinafore, and onto the deck strides Sir Joseph Porter and the crowd of sisters, cousins and aunts that follows him wherever he goes. We needed a female chorus, what can I say? He introduces himself to the crew and affirms that if a young noble like himself, who worked in a law firm and became a politician, can command the Navy, then anybody can. After a quick inspection of the ship and a brief lesson in manners, he leaves the sailors to their work. And the crew are really excited about the Admiral's new approach to rank and manners. Rafe, in particular, is inspired by Sir Joseph's words, and he vows to tell Josephine how he feels about her. Dick Deadeye is sceptical and warns against this, but Rafe's mind's made up. Without further ado, he finds Josephine, wandering the deck, and he pours out his heart and feelings to her with anything but simple eloquence. Unfortunately, though, Josephine wants nothing more than to accept, her father's words ring loudly in her ears. He is simply from a different class, and she haughtily rejects him.
No, Josephine.
What's wrong with you?
Rafe is left utterly crushed. No matter how much his crew console him and defend him from Dick Deadeye's comments, he draws a pistol and places it to his head.
No.
Don't do that.
Fortunately for him, Josephine is still in sight, and in a desperate bid to save his life, she at last admits the feelings she has for him. The crew breathes a sigh of relief as the two lovers can be open and honest with each other at last, and quickly a plan is hatched to take them ashore at night and marry them before anyone can stop them. But while the sailors celebrate and the couple rejoices, Dick Deadeye is not so sure. He only sees how Captain Corcoran will react to this state of affairs. As the sun goes down, the captain wanders the deck, wondering aloud at his current circumstances. His daughter's marriage to Sir Joseph should be the final piece in a perfect jigsaw, but ever since his crew is rebelling, Josephine is sad and nothing, it seems, can go right. Buttercup, who's still on board, comforts Corcoran and even suggests that she might have a few feelings for him, though class would forbid it, of course, but warns him that a big change in his life is coming. As if on cue, Sir Joseph marches in with Hebe, one of his more clingy cousins, and he is less than pleased, as Josephine seems oddly resistant to his charms. What's going on? The captain's got an idea, though. He suggests that Sir Joseph reassures his daughter that class has very little to do with matters of the heart. One song, and very many encores later, and Josephine is only more convinced that Rafe is the man for her. Convinced the matter is settled, Corcoran is disturbed yet again, as Dick Deadeye looms out of the darkness and, with some difficulty, informs the captain of the sailors' plan. As the lights go out on deck, Rafe, Josephine, the sailors, and Sir Joseph's cousin, sisters, aunts, all make their way over to the boats, only to be confronted by an angry Corcoran armed with a vicious cat-o'-nine-tails.
Sexy.
Yeah, I know, right? Should have seen our Ettington show. Only people who've seen it will get that. Realising that the jig is up, Rafe comes clean, admitting everything to his captain, but still refuses to give up his love, declaring that, if nothing else, he is an English man. A sentiment his mates are quick to back up. This latest rebellion is just too much for the captain to bear, and he does the worst thing a naval officer can do. He swears. Yeah.
Wow.
Sailors gasp. Ladies swoon.
Oh my.
And Sir Joseph Porter strides onto deck with a face like thunder. No. He promptly sends the captain to his cabin in disgrace. But now the secret is out. Rafe and Josephine's love is bare for all to see. Don't. And the Admiral sends Rafe to the brig to await his wrath.
Oh, no.
Until Buttercup raises her hand into the air. Unable to contain her guilt, she confesses a crime she has held for years. Many years ago, she was the babysitter for both Rafe and Captain Corcoran.
No.
And had accidentally switched them.
Oh my god, I knew it!
Making Rafe highborn and Corcoran common.
Wow.
This revelation solves everything. It is out of the question for Sir Joseph to marry a commoner like Josephine. But she would be able to marry Rafe, now the captain. And Corcoran, now he's a commoner, is able to return Buttercup's feelings. And even Sir Joseph agrees to marry Cousin Hebe.
Oh.
And as the sun rises, 3 happy couples celebrate their happy union. Usually with a flag.
Okay.
Alright, okay.
HMS Pinafore, everybody.
Right.
I feel like HMS Pinafore had me until the last act.
The last act.
Yeah. I feel like the high topsy-turvy score of the changing babies and all that stuff,
Yeah.
whilst great, I feel like...
Was it not worth the deflation?
Yeah, like I'm feeling these emotions, these real things. Let's break out of our social kind of like traps, and then really all that happens is just we're allowed to be comfortable in our social dynamics.
It is one of the sillier endings, I think.
Yeah.
Because it could have been doing something timeless, something great there, and I feel like it loses it.
It lost it.
Because I was with it, like the point where they're talking about they can't get together.
Yeah,
and there's a
totally.
song.
I'm giving
dramatic potential.
I'm giving it a 9 for dramatic potential.
Yeah.
I think sometimes this is what I was discussing with my friend Will last night, is that occasionally the satire is given more importance in these stories than the than like the emotional like powerfulness of actually really kind of taking these concepts to their limits.
Yeah.
So sometimes it does seem like these endings that Gilbert does kind of they do seem cop out sometimes. Hopefully, I think that's all down to the to the director and the actors, of like making you feel like, even if just in the story and in the script, it might seem like a cop out, that really something has changed, something really has fundamentally changed with these people, and they have learned something. Yeah. But yeah, it definitely can be frustrating, and that is definitely like that's a big reason why I think that people think that these stories are stupid.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty new to this, and I've seen each one at least once, either watching it on TV or on the stage, and you do feel things. You do feel things when it's handled right.
Yeah.
Often when I don't feel things is when it's handled by amateur companies or things, or people that, as you say, don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because, any piece can be made good with the right team. Well, almost any piece. I do.
big fan of the Josephine Rafe dynamic. I love that. I think in terms of like scaffolding and structure, I like the external presences of Buttercup and Dick Deadeye as conceits. I think that's quite tidy. I like it a lot. It like always having an external lens casting light onto the main characters is always quite helpful. Love that. Big fan of the fact that Josephine and Joseph have the same name.
I know, right?
Yeah, I mean...
Can you imagine the wedding stationery?
J&J.
J&J. Joe and Joe.
Love that. And also, like, who doesn't love a naval drama? The costumes are fun.
A good sea
So
epic. I mean,
that's-
I love wearing sailor uniforms.
Yeah.
And an unrequited
For perfectly normal reasons.
You know?
And unrequited love. Yeah, it's got, it's got a lot of
Unrequited
like,
love, but society doesn't let us requite it, you know?
This is something that I don't think this is me kind of feeding you anything. This is just something I've said many times in my videos. But even though this opera is about class, I often think that it is almost kind of accidentally queer coded. Like, it certainly wasn't
Obsessed.
Gilbert's intention, but to me, just the idea of loving somebody that you shouldn't love.
Right.
Like, I have seen people like try things. I mean, there was an all-male one recently, which was really good. But I didn't see it myself. I just know it probably was good. Because the company's good. But it is, even though it is meant to be about class, I do think that the feeling of loving somebody that you can't love is like a very ubiquitous thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that's fair?
In that situation, how does the resolution work? In terms of the queerness? Like, say, in the all-male. Is it still about class?
I don't
in terms of the
know. I think,
resolution?
I think story-wise, it will be.
There is a kind of a
class
nice moment actually
yeah.
in when Corcoran's on the deck on his own and he's sixes or at sevens, and we've spoken about this before. I don't think it's in the actual lyrics, but the way Will did it in our production was just this sort of general air that while his life is supposed to be really good, something's not right. What's missing? What am I doing wrong? Everything should be good. What is happening here? And it's almost like his eventual demotion kind of fixes it. Kind of like, oh, that's what's happened.
Huh.
Okay, that's what I should have been all my life. And that's. I guess I don't know.
No,
I'm just chucking ideas,
Yeah.
but
I think that idea of like realization, where you should be, what you should be, like what you feel like you should be, as opposed to what society kind of, what you feel like society imposes on you, as opposed to what you want to be.
yeah, exactly.
That's a time.
Yes,
that's a
exactly.
universal
It's like, even though
matter.
the story itself is about class, I think we can all kind of identify with just that feeling.
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
what I feel about it.
Yeah.
I do quite like the story, but yeah.
Right,
Nice.
shall we go
So-
on?
That's got
Cool.
the highest averages across the board.
Nice.
Oh.
Number 5, The Pirates of Penzance.
I've heard this. I've heard two.
Yeah, you see, you knew things.
Knowledge.
The Pirates of Penzance. On a deserted coastline in Penzance. 10. Wow, that was a young man named Frederick celebrates both his 21st birthday and the end of his apprenticeship to a crew of pirates.
Sweet.
Alongside him is Ruth, his former nursemaid.
Sorry, can I just quickly point
Please,
out
yes.
that the subtitle to this one is The Slave of Duty, and that duty is a very important concept throughout all of this. I thought I should.
I
just
was
point that out.
getting to that.
I'm sorry. Just point it out.
Alongside him is Ruth, his former nursemaid, who admits that she is completely responsible for his unusual career path, having misheard his father's instructions. You see, his father had wanted his son to be apprenticed to a pilot.
Oh, damn.
But clearly she hadn't heard him very well, and hence the pirate business. She also appears to have romantic feelings for Frederick, which is a bit weird, and as he has seen no other women in all his life, she has convinced him that she is in fact a rare beauty. As the party ends, Frederick addresses his former comrades and says, sadly, that tomorrow he will no longer be a pirate, and thus they will be enemies. He suggests that they come back with him to society, as they're not very good pirates. They're all orphans, so they immediately release any prisoners that say they are also orphans, and they refuse to go up against gangs weaker than themselves, meaning they get beaten up a lot. But their leader, the Pirate King, refuses, saying that compared to the evils of modern civilization, what he does is practically respectable. Frederick and Ruth, now free of obligation, depart and go wandering across the beaches, until Frederick hears the sound of exuberant laughter. A group of pretty young women is playing on a nearby shore while they're waiting for their father to catch up. This is slightly awkward for Ruth. who has been lying to him all these years about the standards of beauty. Hurt and confused by her betrayal, he sends her away and reveals himself to the ladies, insisting that though he looks like a pirate... Stop it! He insists that though he looks like a pirate, he has recently kicked the habit and needs their help in reforming. The women are all fascinated, but not quite enough to trust him, except one. Mabel steps out from the group and accepts Frederick's explanation, chiding her sisters for their lack of charity. As is the way in these operas, they very quickly fall in love, while her sisters stave off awkwardness by talking about the weather. Literally, that's what happens. There's a whole song about it.
Nice.
But this is not the time to be discussing cumulus formations. Frederick warns them that this area has a band of roving pirates that could discover them at any moment. His warning, however, comes too late. The pirates appear and swiftly capture the girls, not intending to rob them, but in fact marry them. Yeah, that's what they want. Sisters aren't very pleased by this development, but Mabel boldly stands forward, warning the pirates that their father is a major general. Yes, he is a major general. Said father has finally caught up to them, and conveniently arrives that very minute. After a wordy explanation as to why he is the very model of a modern major general, he turns to face the brigands. He begs the pirates not to take his daughters and leave him to face his old age alone, for he is, in fact, an orphan. This is a lie. He has heard tales of the Pirates of Penzance and their fondness for orphans. But nonetheless, it works. The pirates release his daughters and make them all honorary members of their band. Sometime later, Frederick, Major General Stanley, and his daughters are at a ruined chapel on the Stanley estate. Apparently, the Major General is so full of remorse for his lie to the pirates that he must ask his ancestors for forgiveness, even though they're not even his ancestors, as he bought the chapel a year ago. He has also assembled a crack squad of police constables to deal with this pirate threat once and for all, and they march into the chapel, eager to meet the foe in battle. The ladies are in awe, and tell the policemen how brave they are to fight a mighty gang of pirates that will almost certainly kill most, if not all of them. Oddly enough, the boys in blue are less keen after that. Frederick wanders outside, reflecting on all the harm he did as a pirate apprentice, and now his chance to put it right. For it is he who will lead the police to the pirates' lair and end their tyrannical hold on fair Penzance, until he feels a gun against the back of his head.
Oh no, Freddie!
Ruth, now back with the pirates, and the Pirate King have slipped behind the lines and made it to the chapel, but not to kill Frederick. Oh no, this is GNS, it's much sillier than that. They reveal that Frederick was born on the 29th of February, during a leap year, meaning in reality he is only 5 years old. As his apprenticeship doesn't end until his 21st birthday, he is still, technically, a pirate. And will be until he's in his 80s. Frederick, ever the slave of duty, reluctantly joins the pirates and reveals the Major General's deception. Before leaving, Frederick meets with Mabel one last time. She begs him to stay, but Frederick's resolve holds. He promises to be faithful until his apprenticeship is done, some 60 years from now, and they can be together. As he leaves, Mabel ponders the several decades between now and then, but assures herself that she will be brave and wait. The policemen, meanwhile, are waiting, pondering the fact that criminals are just people and they aren't committing crimes, until they hear the unmistakable sound of piracy, and they gallantly hide as the pirates sneak up to the estate with cat-like tread. Despite the Major General being awake, still guilty, the pirates easily overwhelm both him and the policeman. The Pirate King advises the liar to prepare for death, but the police sergeant has one last ace in the hole. He bids the pirates yield in Queen Victoria's name. Overcome with patriotism, the pirates kneel in surrender.
That's awesome.
Which isn't standard behaviour for pirates. Luckily, Ruth is here to explain. You see, all these pirates are in fact noblemen who have gone wrong.
What?
Yeah. This revelation solves everything.
Oh my god!
The Major General is of course very happy for his daughters to marry noblemen, even ex-pirates, and gives his consent. As the pirate crew no longer exists, Frederick is free to be with Mabel, and the story ends with Major General Stanley feeling a bit down about paying all his daughters' dowries at the same time. I'm sensing
Again, like we totally
an emotional
had
reaction.
till the end.
Seriously, you lost me with that.
It is interesting. I think that's, and I think a lot of people who aren't used to GNS do have that reaction about some of these endings. Like it does sometimes feel like, oh, come on.
And it does sound worse when it's done in this tight prose form. It makes much more dramatic sense when it's done on stage.
Yeah, but you know, you are not alone in that for sure.
It's like you've got this, and you can understand it for, you know, the needs of the time and so on and so forth. But it's like you've got these really kind of like interesting ideas that they kind of utilize, and then it's like we have to kind of wrap it up into something that's recognizable. Is it happy? Is it a comedy at the end?
They're all comedy.
Well, there we go. So everyone has to get married off at the end in a weird way, no matter how weird it is.
Someone doesn't get married in the next one. Someone doesn't get married in the next one. Someone actually has what we call a bad ending at the end of the next one.
Interesting. But like, how do you think? What do you think of all these categories then, in terms of Pirates of Penzance?
I think there's lots of there's lots of topsy-turvy comedic potential.
Yeah, I gave it high for that.
Just in the pirates, like being, you know,
ineffectual.
Yeah,
I didn't describe it very well in my synopsis, but the policemen are actually hilarious as well because they're just so incompetent and cowardly.
No, I can definitely see. Pirates thing. I'm sure that's a moment. That's what I like.
There's also a very very extended sequence where the pirate king and the major general are having a conversation using the word orphan.
Yeah.
But the major general is saying the word orphan as in a person who's lost their parents, and the pirate king is saying orphan as in frequently, and they don't understand what each other are saying.
Orphan. Well, that got him.
Yeah. So like, I think that like humor-wise, I think Pirates of Penzance.
Sorry.
Very much your cup of tea, Ben. I think.
Orphan.
What a pun! You like puns, Spence?
Yeah.
Oh, that's gold.
And there's a fantastic line in Act 2 where when Frederick reveals that the Major General is an orphan, the Pirate King goes, "What?" And he goes, "More than that, he never was one." And that's very funny. No, we're not judging dialogue here, but I mean, it's just it is. I think that. You do get the feeling that you are in a universe with Pirates of Penzance and HMS Pinafore.
Definitely.
That like the rules of logic do not apply here, but the characters are very much convinced by the rules of the universe they are in.
Sure.
And where I think GNS fails is when people are kind of trying to put these shows on while kind of thinking at the same time they're silly. Because if you actually approach them with the characters all having utter conviction of what they're doing, the endings are certainly less jarring than it might.
Yeah.
Like in a few of these stories, the beginning of it has been great. In terms of just a synopsis. Like there's stuff to actually unpack there and whatever. It's just the ending that necessarily makes it.
How about kind of emotional resonance, meaning today? Like, do you think people today would get the concepts in here?
Do you know what
slave of duty.
Yeah, do you know what I loved was, I don't know how it's portrayed in the opera, but when the Pirate King's discussion of it being better to commit acts of piracy than to engage in society.
I like that.
I love that as a conceit. And it, like the idea of lawlessness or living outside of
The outlaw situation.
Right,
Yeah.
I think it's really compelling, and the idea that you've got an ineffectual police force, and
that are themselves questioning their own role as police. Like,
Totally.
well, are these really criminals when they're not committing crimes? They're just
Right.
people, right?
Absolutely. And so, like, having almost an entire opera that explores that
Yeah.
conceit is
It is.
really compelling.
It is essentially
I think
like
that's
this is when I directed this at the 2021 Gilbert and Sullivan Festival. I actually like an interview for the kind of program, the big festival program, and I was describing in quite a great deal of seriousness how this opera is actually an opera about Kant's categorical imperative, which is like doing
again,
one's duty for
philosophical
the
here.
sake of duty, and the way at which it explores the concept of duty is absolutely fascinating because all these characters are driven by the same thing. They're all driven by the need to do their duty, and that is my favourite thing about this show.
That difference between, them being pirates and then nobles and the kind of the attitudes towards a pirate or what a pirate is being a very thin line.
Yeah.
Because it's like in real life how privateers and pirates
Well, exactly,
are only
yeah.
different by who gives them actual permission to
Yeah.
do what they do.
There's a whole story behind that, you know.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of interesting just in the way that we look at, if you look at like terrorism or freedom fighters,
Well, yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There is a whole
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it's like the moral ambiguity of society's kind of
Labels.
outcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
It's really interesting. Number 6,
Mambo was number 6.
Mambo number 6 is Patience. The alternate title of this is Bunthorne's Bride. The themes,
Yes,
the
it's a funny
themes to
name.
consider when Dan is reading a synopsis of this one is the dangers in blindly following fads. That's probably like the main concept of this one. I should be sort of giving you
Do we
like
just do a 10 for meaning today now?
Right, here we go. There is a crowd of wailing, fainting women outside Bunthorne Castle. No, it's not the plague. It's much worse. An aesthetic poet. Every woman, almost, in the village hangs upon Bunthorne's every word. But the oldest and plainest of them, Lady Jane, knows better. She knows that Bunthorne has very little interest in his crowd of simpering groupies, but instead prefers the only girl not obsessed with him, a local milkmaid named Patience. That's the name of the show!
Patience.
Patience is a young woman of simple pleasures, and doesn't believe she has ever been in love before, except maybe once. And looking at how it's making these other women behave, she's quite glad of it. Suddenly, drums sound, horse hooves clatter, and the 35th Dragoon Guard rides into town. They're on a mission of great import. Not for the realm, but for their hearts. They have come to finally propose their long-time sweethearts living in the village.
Oh, that's nice.
Only to discover them all fawning over some lousy poet! Bunthorne, however, carries a secret. He hates aestheticism. He thinks the whole idea is ridiculous. He just puts it on to get attention. And as Patience approaches, he tries to convince her that he too prefers the simpler things in life. He doesn't even like poetry. Why does he keep writing it then? But Patience still rejects him. And as he flounces off, one of his admirers, Lady Angela, stays behind to discuss with Patience why she doesn't fall for Bunthorne the way the other girls do. They discuss Patience's childhood crush and agree that love is the one truly unselfish pursuit and that she really should fall in love at the earliest convenience, please. As if one poet wasn't bad enough, here comes another one. A very, very pretty one. One Archibald Grosvenor, who just happens to be Patience's childhood crush. They happily reunite after so many years, and they consider the possibility of falling in love, but it's impossible. As long as Lady Angela has spoken true and love is truly unselfish. You see, Grosvenor is so very beautiful that were Patience to love him and keep her all to herself, she would be selfish. And thus, they have to part ways. Meanwhile, Bunthorne
So
is...
yeah, like the line is just maybe in case that wasn't clear. Patience says to Grosvenor, "Well, I can't love you because you are perfection, and there can be nothing unselfish in loving you." So that just if you just in case that wasn't clear.
Bunthorne is not taking Patience's rejection well. In fact, he's decided to raffle himself off to the highest bidder. Heirlooms are sold, savings are withdrawn as the ladies scramble to get hold of tickets. And so the poet hands the bag to Lady Jane and prepares for his unknown bride when Patience enters, and she decides to do the most selfless thing, and therefore loving thing, that she can think of. She falls on her sword and agrees to marry Bunthorne, who delightedly accepts. Robbed of their profound eye candy, the ladies return to their soldier sweethearts. This revelation solves it. Wait a minute. What's that? Archibald Grosvenor? He's also an aesthetic poet. And he's really fit. Shove off, soldier boy. The crowd of women immediately join Team Grosvenor, much to the chagrin of every sane person present. Lady Jane is left all alone and laments how time passes, how old she has become. Her mood isn't even improved by playing objectively the best instrument in the world, the cello. Things are no better elsewhere. Grosvenor is now stuck with a horde of women following him everywhere. Bunthorne has the girl of his dreams, but he knows that she loves someone else. And his arrogance misses the attention of the women. And the dragoons have attempted to adopt aestheticism to win back their loves with limited success. In an attempt to correct things for him, Bunthorne confronts Grosvenor and insists that he discard all his poetic aesthetics and become as ordinary as possible. Desperate to rid himself of his new followers, Grosvenor agrees. This plan backfires in his face, however. The women, rather than converting back to Bunthorne, follow Grosvenor into normality. And with this revelation, it solves everything. The women return to their soldier loves, Patience is free to marry Grosvenor, now he's no longer perfect, and Jane finds love among the soldiers. Bunthorne is left alone, with no admirers, no Patience, and nothing but the hollow pretences he built his life around.
Damn.
Savage.
So, just a quick question. Jane finds love amongst the soldiers?
She does, yes.
No, what
There's
what
a character
happens,
I've had to cut out, but you know.
Yeah, no. What happens is the Duke, who was the most eligible of all the soldiers, who's a very funny character in himself, but I won't get into the intricacies of him. But he announces at the end, so because Bunthorne's left on his own, Jane, he finally gets to be with Jane. So Jane agrees, oh yes, I'll never leave you, Bunthorne, I'll be with you forever. But then the Duke comes forward and says, right ladies, I have a great gift to bestow, me. And, along with the theme of what's been going along here, you ladies have all it takes to make a woman happy. You are happy enough just being beautiful, so I can see it as my duty to go with the person who is the least beautiful of all of you, Jane. And she just kind of immediately goes, Duke! And after all her kind of following of Bunthorne throughout this whole show, and she's obsessed with him. At the sight of this Duke, very, very handsome young Duke proposing to her, she's like, oh yes, I'll go with him. So it's a bit of a subversion of expectations, but it is one thing that you do kind of want Bunthorne and Jane to end up together, but it's very funny at the end when that happens. So, yeah.
I'm very happy that Bunthorne ends up alone.
And another thing that's probably as important to mention is that the aestheticism movement, kind of headed by Oscar Wilde, Gilbert was very interested in that. And Oscar Wilde actually, when Patience toured in America, Oscar Wilde went with the tour to give a talk to give a talk on aestheticism. So even though Bunthorne himself, he's not modelled on Oscar Wilde, he's actually modelled more on people
Like
who
the archetypal
were like
dandy.
trying to be like Oscar Wilde,
Right.
but are actually like completely conventional people just pretending. Because I think Gilbert actually liked Oscar Wilde and like he thought he was great, but Bunthorne is more modelled on like a pretend Oscar Wilde, a copycat who's just trying to do it to get attention. But how did you find it in terms of clarity?
I thought it was pretty clear.
The whole love being unselfish business.
I think the ethics is really complicated. I think
Yeah.
the narrative is clear.
Yeah.
The whole
it's
thing with the
funny.
dragoons and their sweethearts and the fact they're on again, off again, on again, off again. And just like, okay, it meant something the first time, and now that okay, we're doing it again. All right, okay, fine.
That's kind of like, for me, that affects like the dramatic potential or the meaning today. It's like how the idea of how relationships are framed is just so frivolous. And so silly. It doesn't mean anything. Like, it's all about, looks or status or whatever. It's nothing about the actual person. So it makes it difficult to kind of like...
There's even a whole song about when they decide, when the maidens decide to marry the dragoons instead of the poets. On stage at that moment are 2 ladies and 3 dragoons, and there's a whole song about, oh well, if you take you and you take you, I'll be alone. But then actually I could take you and you could take you. It's very transactional.
We are completely
Yeah, so-
interchangeable.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the themes of Patience is that, like, and indeed in quite a few of the operas, is that marriage is like a transactional thing.
Yeah.
And I think like
Which from a certain time...
beauty is the main currency in these transactions. Like, I mean, I think it was there in Pirates of Penzance as well with
Yeah.
Ruth, right? Where she uses trickery to deceive the young man and
She's also
reframe his
quite a
concept
bit
of
older.
beauty.
She's also quite
Do you
a
know
bit
how
older.
old she is? 47.
But I think that's really interesting as well to think about, like as a theme, because as distasteful as we might find it, it's very prevalent today. Like,
This is true.
beauty as currency is a very relevant theme, I think.
Absolutely.
So that I think is quite interesting, and the way that they explore it seems intriguing.
Yeah.
Like, I like being confused by ethics. So I'm kind of I like that I have to wrap my head around what Patience actually wants, and I like the idea that a lot of the women's names mean things. You know,
Yeah.
like Ruth means regret, Patience means patience.
I had actually caught that. That's. Did you learn something? Did you learn something about GNS today?
Ruth means regret.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I'm getting high stakes from Grosvenor. Like, I think as the most playable character, like I've been thinking about the characters in terms of like which ones are the most juicy to play.
You'd make a great Grosvenor.
You
Playing
do well with
Grosvenor would be
Grosvenor.
really fun.
Because I actually had Grosvenor as a girl.
Oh, that's
when I did it last
cool.
time.
That's
So all the
cool.
maidens were like obsessed with this girl, which kind of
Nice.
further highlighted the totally arbitrary
right.
nature of their love. Like, it's completely interchangeable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like, but for everybody else, I don't know. I'm baffled by Patience, so I don't know what her stakes are.
Yeah,
tricky.
it is
a
a bit
confusion.
baffling.
Like, the thing is, I don't think Patience herself knows what her stakes are.
Yeah.
She's portrayed when I saw her as this someone who's been very, very in a very narrow lane her whole life. You know, she never needed to go out and experience the world like this. She was quite happy doing what she did, and that kind of made her more grounded than all these ladies flitting from one thing to the next. But at the same time, she often in the show wonders, what on earth are they thinking? What are they feeling? Should I be doing
she
this?
does
Should
have
I?
like a big, like Patience has a big realization in Act 2 that because somebody challenges her that, oh, like, you don't know what love is, and but she says no, I know what love is. There was a happy time when I didn't, but a bitter experience has taught me. And then she sings about how what love is having to completely give up everything you are and hand it over to a man, basically. And you can't ever be selfish. You have to tread on eggshells around him. You have to. That is actually quite. That is something very prevalent. Because I remember singing that and applying that to my life at that moment when I was playing that part and thinking, wow, I actually often feel like this in the relationship I'm in.
It's an observer's
You know?
description of love based on watching other people feel it.
Right.
Number 7.
Mambo's number 7.
That one.
Which one? Any of these not numbers?
Is IOLANTHE, or the pier and the peery, which is like a kind of archaic word for fairy. So it's all about fairies and politics.
Cool.
As some of the more eagle-eyed among you can probably tell, I have changed my colour scheme as I was sweating like a pig. The denizens of fairyland are less than happy. Although they go about their business as ever they have, life just isn't what it used to be. The fairy queen notices this and asks her people what the matter is. The answer is unanimous. They all miss Iolanthe.
Oh,
I loved Iolanthe, man.
Oh, she's the best.
yeah, legend.
Iolanthe was one of the most beloved fairies in the land, but she committed the capital crime of marrying a mortal.
Oh.
Under normal circumstances, this would spell death for any fairy, but so beloved was Iolanthe, the queen softened her sentence to banishment, provided she never meet or speak with her husband ever again. But after 25 years, life just hasn't been the same, and so, at her subject's behest, the queen summons Iolanthe and pardons her.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, she is very happy to be out of her frog-infested exile, but she has a surprise for her people. Before she left her husband, she has conceived a child. Strephon, now a strapping 25-year-old farmer, is
and-
a fairy down to the waist,
Yeah.
but with mortal legs.
I knew it.
He is very excited to meet his aunts and to tell them his plans. For today, he is going to ask for the hand of the woman he loves. Her name is Phyllis. She's the ward of the Lord Chancellor of Parliament. And thus far, he's been rather less keen to give consent, but the couple have made plans to elope if he refuses. Elsewhere, the peers of the House of Lords meet in the only way lords do, with bombast, splendour, and red sparkly robes. The topic of discussion?
Yeah.
Phyllis. Every man in the room is utterly taken with her, but the Chancellor is indecisive as to who should get her hand. To help solve this problem, they invite Phyllis into the chamber that she might decide herself, but she rejects them all, preferring simpler ideas of marriage to the strutting peacocks of the house. As if on cue, Strephon approaches, and he begins a fierce debate with the Chancellor that nature itself wishes his union with Phyllis. However, sufficient evidence that nature has interested herself in the matter is notwithstanding, and his proposal is dismissed. Wow, that was a lot of words. Crushed, Strephon goes to his mother for comfort and advice. Unfortunately, he is followed by the peers, led by two obnoxious earls named Tololur and Mount Ararat. Tolola, is that how the emphasis goes?
Yeah.
Tolola, and Mount Ararat. They catch Strephon embracing Iolanthe, who looks like a young lady, being a fairy, and are quick to inform Phyllis of her beloved's treachery. Enraged and distraught, Phyllis leaves Strephon, declaring that she will marry any of the House of Peers if they can decide amongst themselves which one. So we might be here a while. Seeing no other option, Strephon asks the fairies for help, who arrive amongst the politicians and are instantly mistaken for schoolgirls on an outing. The Queen does not take kindly to this, and knows just how to help Strephon and get some payback. She uses her magic and a little political influence to not only make Strephon a member of Parliament, but gives him the power to pass any bill he suggests. The lords quake with fear, contemplating what a powerful political figure means for the country, and more importantly, to them. Sometime later, Strephon has become a political force to be reckoned with, to the point he now leads both parties. After a few minor victories, as a brief example, let's say, resolving the border dispute, he stands poised to pass a bill that will force the House of Peers to undergo competitive examination, which will be curtains for a great many of them. In desperation, they go to the fairies and beg them to stop their representative from passing the bill and making them actually do things. The fairies shrug. They say they cannot stop Strephon, even if they wanted to. But they've grown quite fond of the lords. Very fond, indeed. A dangerous position for a fairy to be in, considering to marry a mortal means death. Meanwhile, Phyllis has narrowed her decision to Tololla and Mount Ararat. And the two discuss how to break the deadlock.
One of them noisy out here. I'm just going to shut it.
Oh, okay. One of them could, of course, renounce his titles, lands, and riches, but neither one of them wants to, even at the request of a lady. They could duel to the death, as is tradition, but the idea of either of them dying makes the other upset. They conclude that their friendship is much more important than marriage, and both of them renounce their claim. Things are looking up when the Lord Chancellor staggers in his nightgown, recovering from a nightmare caused by his unrequited love for Phyllis. At the encouragement of his peers, he decides to marry Phyllis himself. Strephon, despite his success, is miserable. He realises he will never be happy without Phyllis, and so he meets with her in secret, explaining his fairy nature and his mother, Iolanthe, who he introduces. They plead with her to convince the Chancellor to let them marry, but Iolanthe goes pale. She cannot meet him, but she refuses to explain why. And she promises to try. She meets the Chancellor with a thick veil, begging him to relent and let the two lovers be together. Something in this veiled woman stirs the Chancellor. Something from long ago. No, it couldn't be. But it is not enough. He declares that he will still marry Phyllis. And in desperation, sealing her doom, she removes her veil and reveals herself as Iolanthe, the Lord Chancellor's wife, making him, of course, Strephon's father. Before the two of them can reconcile, the sky rips apart and the fairy queen bursts forth, lightning crackling in her fingertips.
Sick.
Iolanthe has once again broken her oath, and now she must die. As the immortal monarch raises her staff for the killing blow, she is stopped by all of her subjects. If Iolanthe must die, then so must all of them, because they are also guilty of her crime. It turns out that all the fairies have married all the peers without the queen knowing. She gives a great sigh of exasperation. She can hardly kill all of them. Luckily, the Chancellor has a suggestion. The insertion of a single word into fairy law should do it. Every fairy must die who doesn't marry a mortal. This revelation solves everything. The peers decide that as the House of Lords will now be staffed by competent people, they will go and live in fairyland with their new wives. The Queen takes a soldier, Private Willis, as her husband to save her life. Phyllis and Strephon are reunited, and together they all soar over the River Thames and off into the sky.
And I think that just to kind of add to the synopsis, it's there are so many themes running all the way through, like kind of trying to like imply that like the peers are just as ridiculous and out of this world as the fairies are in terms of how removed they are from society.
Well, the House of Lords, of course they are.
And how pompous they are. Like when Phyllis first rejects them, there's a whole song about like you are. It's basically like this guy saying you are discriminating against us because of our blue blood. like that's basically discrimination what they're doing to us. So that's kind of topsy turvy. And then there's a whole song in Act 2 about it's called "When Britain Really Ruled the Waves," saying when in all these grand moments in British history, when Wellington thrashed Bonaparte, when all of these amazing things happened, the House of Peers did nothing in particular,
And
but
did it very well.
and so like, we like the House of Peers has always had a very strong presence by having absolutely no effect on anything whatsoever. So it's I would say this is one of the more kind of politically biting ones of the canon.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are your thoughts about it?
I really enjoy that. That's definitely the first thing that I picked up on is I enjoy the political critique, and I think that's something that I would enjoy if I watched the opera. I think
Love a trip into fairyland.
Love a Trip into Fairyland.
Who doesn't?
Iolanthe's Dilemma. I think I put the dramatic potential at 9 just for that scene where she appears in the veil. Because that's nice.
I think that is arguably one of the top 5 kind of dramatic moments of the canon.
It's one of the few moments in the whole canon where a character is actually threatened with death.
Yeah. So that's fun. I enjoy those dates.
Pretty clear, I feel like.
The only thing is, like, the kind of logistics or practicalities of each realm. Like, are all of the fairies female, for example?
They are, correct.
Do we ever meet any male fairies?
In my version, I put male fairies in there. Nice. And the thing is that there are, like, potentially, if you made it into a movie, you could, or, you know, if you had enough people, you could totally have, like, male fairies and like, female peers. The only thing is, it's kind of commanded by voice types.
Yeah,
so
I get that.
I don't think it really think it matters what gender any of the characters are. Gender's never really like specified. I would say the peers do have this like big masculine energy. So I think if you were to have kind of overtly female peers, like women peers, that may kind of lessen the kind of misogyny of it, which I think is quite important. But hey, it's,
totally get that.
You could have female peers. It's not necessarily about gender, but I think it maybe is a more powerful message of it is.
Yeah, no, totally. And then, like, what's the logistics of Stephen's mortal legs? I mean, I immediately Stefan's mortal legs. I immediately thought of Achilles being dipped in the river Styx.
Yeah, when he says like, what's the good of being half a fairy? Like, my body can creep through a keyhole, but what's the use of that when my legs are left? My brain is a fairy brain, but my legs are a pair of gibbering idiots. You know, like he does get into all the logistics.
Sweet.
There was a lovely moment actually in the one we saw at the festival, which was the Belgian company that did it, and the actress playing Phyllis was heavily pregnant. And there's in the moment when he reveals to her that he is actually half a fairy, and she goes, "Oh, which half?" You know which half.
I think it's the idea that there's this idea in their universe that if you are half a fairy, that must mean that literally half of your body is a fairy. That's not the way genetics works. But it's like everyone just seems to understand what that means, and that is just like a concept which everyone gets hold of. And
that's fun. I like that. That gets more points.
I feel like Centaurs started that.
Yeah, probably the half and half.
Yeah, the half and half.
Also, big fan of the Fairy Queen. She sounds best.
She's great.
Love a Fairy Queen.
Yeah.
So, I think we're about to move on to one of the most controversial ones.
It's controversial.
This is one of the 3 that can be considered problematic.
It's kind of like the Taming of the Shrew of GNS.
Number 8. Princess Ida or Castle Adamant.
Princess Ida, here we go. The only one that's 3 acts. So. And
it's actually based on a Tennyson poem. It's not an original story.
Was it the Tennyson poem? What's
the Princess? Do you know it?
No, I don't.
Google it later.
I will. Check it out. That's cool.
Many years ago, a bargain between nations was made. Hilarion, the son of King Hildebrand, and Ida, the daughter of King Gamma.
Garma,
is it Garma?
Hildebrand and Garma.
Hilarion. There we are. Garma, then, would be married. 20 years later, the promised day has arrived, and the court of King Hildebrand anxiously await the arrival of Garma and his daughter, while surreptitiously planning to go to war if he doesn't hold up his end of the deal. Diplomacy. Garma arrives, as do his 3 burly sons in magnificent armour plate. but no sign of Ida. The foreign king explains that Ida has utterly forsworn men and locked herself in a castle and started a university exclusively for women.
Sick.
Yeah. Hildebrand is not pleased at this news. How can there be a marriage with no bride? He orders his son to go to this castle and claim his wife, and if he can't, well, there may be violent consequences. Hilarion, however, is confident he can convince her. He takes 2 friends from court, Cyril and Florian, and sets off for Castle Adamant. Meanwhile, Garma and his sons are held hostage, just in case. Castle Adamant is the picture of a university. Everywhere you look, you see the sum of human knowledge being pushed and expanded. There are, however, some strict conditions to this erudite paradise. Absolutely no men allowed. Students are expelled merely for owning a set of chessmen, or sketching a perambulator. A double perambulator, have you no shame? Ida herself preaches that men will soon be conquered by far superior women, but they need not fear, for women will treat them better than they ever treated women. Hilarion, Cyril, and Florian sneak into the castle and find no sign of Ida, but a lot of interesting projects the women are undertaking. One quick change into spare robes later, and here stand 3 new applicants to the college. Amazingly, their disguises actually fool Ida, and she accepts them into the college. She tells them her theories and ideas on the nature of the world, and Hilarion can't help but be inspired. One teacher, however, sees through their disguises immediately. Lady Psyche, who just happens to be Florian's sister. Small world. Luckily, she takes the men into her confidence, but still advises that they leave. The princess will kill them if she finds them, and after all, they're only poor, simple men. They don't really have the brain power to do something like this. Oh, great, now someone else knows. Melissa, another occupant of the castle, has overheard, but by a stroke of impossible luck, falls instantly in love with Florian.
Nice.
And will keep his secret. Cyril, however, as usual, ruins everything. I should have mentioned, Cyril always ruins everything. He gets tipsy at lunch and sings a rude song.
Nice.
And it's here that things get a bit mental, so bear with me here. There is a scuffle to grab the interlopers, and in the confusion, Ida falls into the moat. Hilarion dives in to save her, but the princess is still furious her sanctuary has been violated. She sentences the 3 of them to death. But quite unexpectedly, Hilarion drops to his knees, accepting his fate. Without her love, he has nothing to live for, and welcomes death. Before anyone can have anything chopped off, however, there is a mighty crash, and the gate is blown off its hinges. In marches King Hildebrand, tired of waiting, and a troop of his finest soldiers. He reminds Ida of the deal struck all those years ago, and that if she doesn't comply, then he will kill all 3 of her brothers still in custody. Ida admits that Hilarion is brave, and strong, and tall. But she would rather die than be his bride. At her command, in an incredible feat of strength, the women take up arms and drive the soldiers out, sealing the broken gates. The siege of Castle Adamant has begun. Things don't begin well for Ida. As it turns out, it's hard to convince a bunch of students to fight trained soldiers, and most of them decide to hide instead. There is some good news, though, as King Garma comes in as Hildebrand's emissary. He's not happy at all. He's been tortured horribly by being forced to live in luxury, so he has nothing to complain about.
Oh no!
I know, right? He is a proper misanthrope. He hates people. And to torture him, they've just given him the most luxurious conditions, so he cannot complain about anything. He suggests, rather than all-out war, a combat melee. Hilarion, Cyril, and Fabian against her
Florian.
Florian.
Fabian's and Twelfth Night.
Sorry, Florian. Thank you very much. I typed this on the train after work, okay?
These are awesome.
And her 3 brothers to the death. Ida is less than pleased that men are to decide this conflict, but recognises the hopelessness of the situation. The ring is set. The combatants enter, Hilarion and his friends still in their dresses, and Ida's 3 brothers who shed all their nice battle armour as it's uncomfortable to fight in, and the battle begins. See? The battle begins! Dun, 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 dun. At this point, there are so many different endings on record that I don't know which one to pick. So I will just say that the combat is ended and Ida has lost. She is utterly distraught that her plans will no longer come to fruition, but Hilarion makes a desperate emotional plea to give mankind one more chance. She agrees to marry Hilarion, but only on the condition that she can return to the castle if she doesn't like the arrangement. Celebration ensues, and everything is all right in the end.
Yeah, I think so. The ending of that can be rather problematic because the classic ending is Hilarion gives this speech where he says, "But what you're doing here is you're saying that that women are kind of better than men, but like if you don't reproduce with men, how is this going to continue?" And she goes, "Oh, I hadn't thought of that." And then he says, and also, women are too pure, too beautiful, and precious to have experiments played upon them. So take our grosser clay and use it as you will. But it's just like a bit, whoa.
It's a little bit Kate's speech.
And it's very much like kind of, there are 2 genders.
Yeah.
So, but there are ways of kind of ending it a bit more nicely than that. But that is what it is anyway. What do you think?
Intriguing.
That's the word.
Do you know what? I think that's one of the most juicy ones for me.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, weirdly.
Annoyingly, yeah, it does have a lot of potential to it.
And do you know? And I think we were mentioning before in the other ones that it's all about who's directing it, right? In terms of the way that it's presented and the nuances that are brought forward. I think with this one, the conceit or the device of Castle Adamant is actually fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously you told us that it's Tennyson, and it does. When you said that, it does really have the kind of Victorian overlay of medieval romance to it, which I think could be really effective as well. But I think that the idea of an experiment whereby women create their own pedagogical environment. I mean, I'm always going to be here for that. Like, I really want to. Like, I'd love to see that. Even it, and I think that it could be complicated in really compelling ways as opposed to problematic.
As we say, there are ways. Rachel knows more about this, but there are ways where it ends better.
The issue is that the Tennyson poem, the way the Tennyson poem phrases it, is that this university. It isn't designed to hold the women in it forever.
Right.
The idea is, yes, they do go there, and yes, they do pledge to never marry a man, but they'll go there for a few years, and then they will kind of become teachers in the real world, or like do things in the real world. And so the idea isn't to kind of prevent any women from marrying men and
it's
giving
a training
birth.
ground, isn't it?
It's just to have some. It's just to slowly leak the idea into the world that women are equal to men. So I think that the ending conceit about how how will this progeny continue? Oh, I didn't think of that. It's kind of very unkind and unfair to the original material.
Yeah, right.
And it's trivializing something which is tremendously important to many people. And so I think a lot of people, including me, find this really problematic, and there's certainly ways of fixing it, but it would involve rewriting it slightly. But I'm going to do that one day. But this is one of the 2 I've never directed.
Yeah. I can totally.
And I will. It's just that it'll take a lot of work. But I'm kind of with you. I think it's it's probably one of the highest stakes, like juiciest ones.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think. just
And the
amount of
music
potential,
when they push the men out and
we
get the
can't
seed
mention
ready.
the music.
I'm sorry, but I want to. It's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
I
John?
find the whole thing problematic, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I just think, just debate, and this is more a modern reading of it, but I just think all these battles, the whole, you know, if she doesn't love me, someone's about to die, that connection between love and violence, where it's like not sorting your own emotions or your feelings about this, just kind of projecting that onto someone else in the terms of violence. It happens all the time and it's stupid, and we need to get past it. And just this whole, like, the whole battle between women and men, women are this, men are that, I don't think it's helpful.
No.
I don't think it says much. Back then, I can see it. You know, now I don't think it says much, and I think it's probably more harmful than it is helpful.
No, I agree
That's
with you. I think
interesting.
in order to play this, you would need to change the perspective.
Yeah.
You would need to turn it, rather than a battle against women and men, turn it into the toxic state of the world that men have created for it, and trying to return away from that rather than a battle between genders left and right.
Sure.
And it's but and I totally agree that it's perspective dependent, because I don't know, when I was listening to the story I was thinking more along the lines of how one is educated and access to education, and I think that is something that I find endlessly fascinating and is often very gendered. And people's access to education, I mean there are lots of things that inhibit access to education. One of them is gender, and then I think that's something that could be super interesting to explore without it becoming what it definitely is, which is a battle of the sexes, which you're totally right.
If you were able to kind of tweak the story slightly to make it really clear that this macho kind of alpha male patriarchal attitude that the men have is actually just as damaging to them as it is to...
Well, I think
women,
it is, because when Hilarion actually gets to the college, I mean, not everyone plays it this way, but I've seen people play it with him being really kind of blown away by the scope of all that is going on here, and he sits there and he's just absorbing Ida's words as she's explaining, you know, that
like that, I think,
because like most directors and
Yeah.
actors choose to like have the guys come and like make fun of the college, but there's actually no reason textually why one, or even like Cyril, he's just a prick.
he's a dick.
but there's no reason why the other two textually couldn't actually be very impressed with what they see.
And that whole-
it just depends on how you deliver the lines.
And her song, which she doesn't talk about men being wrong as she does in a lot of the plays. She talks about the world is wrong. The world is wrong and we need to fix it.
But then, as in Gilbert's fashion, he ends it in a trivial, frivolous way, which in this instance I find inappropriate. So I would want to change the ending of this. But I think I love the fact that you like it and you think that it's got redeeming features. So I think
it could. I think it could.
Another.
So we are moving on to, and I will preface this one by saying, so you will not really know from hearing the synopsis exactly why this one is problematic, because because the thing is, it is so problematic in an arena that I am not qualified to even have an opinion on, because it's considered by some to be harmful to Japanese people, but particularly Japanese Americans.
I thought that's where we go.
So, because even though textually it doesn't really overtly make fun of the Japanese, the trouble is a lot of people's portrayals, a lot of people's directions does portray in that way. So the best thing to do, in my opinion, is just say, look, I don't know where that line is to be drawn. So let's just completely move away from Japan. Let's set it somewhere else. Let's change all the names of the characters.
There is nothing to suggest that it's set in Japan, other than it mentions a couple of times it's set in Japan.
So we have instead set it in the realm of the board game Settlers of Catan.
We have.
Nice.
So it's now in Catan, not Japan. And
gone right.
and I have made up all the names of the characters myself, but you will now get to absorb the story as if it's never been set in Japan.
Okay.
But that is why it's called the MIKADO.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Okay, here we go. In the mystical land of Catan, there lies the tiny town of Tageru, where a young minstrel named Ethelrun has just wandered in playing music and is quick to start conversations with the locals. You see, the last time he passed through here, he met the most wonderful girl, a student named Nayum, the ward of the local tailor, Clocow. Our hero has returned to ask for her hand in marriage. Only quite a lot has happened in Tageru since the last time he was here. And Clocow is currently under sentence of death for the vile crime of flirting. I know.
Love it.
Degenerate.
You see, the land of Catan is ruled over by the mighty Mikado, who has an interesting policy of governance, including making a number of perfectly normal things a capital offence, flirting, for example. As a result, executions became far more common, and in order to stem the tide of blood, the citizens of Tageru had to do something drastic. They appointed the next criminal for the chop, Clocow in this case, as the public executioner. And as all prisoners must die in a strict order, and he would find it rather hard to chop off his own head, the killing was ended. In gratitude for his services, the townsfolk made Clocow the highest authority in Tageru, the Lord High Executioner, which created problems of its own, as the nobility of the town, too proud to serve under a tailor, resigned their posts. Luckily, one man was willing to help. Pafuglfar, selfless, noble, and with blood blue enough to make a doctor very concerned, agreed to take on all government jobs, responsibilities, and their subsequent salaries. And to top it all off, Clocow has arranged to marry Nayum this very day. Right, exposition over. Back to the good stuff. Nayum enters with Clocow's other wards just in time for Ethelrun to declare his love for her and ask Clocow for her hand, which goes about as well as you'd expect. But he manages to sneak off with Nayum and reveal that he is in fact the son of the Mikado. He has been travelling in disguise to hide from an elderly lady in court that's taken a fancy to him. Yes. That's what it is. That's what it is. The two desperately want to be together, but are forbidden to even flirt, because, you know, crime.
Yeah.
Things take a turn for the worse in court. The Mikado himself has sent word that the lack of executions in Tageru is very suspicious, and he will be arriving in 1 month to make sure everything is up to scratch. Clocow is just considering how difficult, not to mention dangerous, it would be to try and cut off his own head when he comes upon Ethelrun attempting to hang himself. So sad is he that he will never be with Nayum that he has decided life just isn't worth living. And Clocow sees an opportunity. He and Ethelrun strike a bargain. He will marry Nayum for 1 month of luxury. And then he shall be beheaded to satisfy the Mikado, and finally Clocow will marry his widow. It's foolproof. Right? Nothing can go wrong with that. The whole town gathers to celebrate the impending wedding, but suddenly the party is crashed by a contingent of soldiers led by a fierce-looking lady named Kotilska. She has been searching the land for a young man at court that she wanted to marry, but who disappeared mysteriously. I wonder who that could be. She tries everything to convince Ethelrun to come with her, even going so far as to reveal his secret identity. But she is drowned out by the celebration, and swearing revenge, she leaves. As Nayum is preparing for her wedding, she muses that the dark shadow of execution will be over their short married life. Ethelrun tries to cheer her up, encouraging her to seize the moment and live every day like a month. However, Pafuglfar has found a problem in the law. If Ethelrun is beheaded, the law states that Nayum must be buried alive. Oh, Mikado, you and your silly laws. Nayum immediately calls off the wedding, and Ethelrun depressed again, asks Cloakow to behead him immediately. But poor Cloakow just is too soft-hearted for the task, and in a massive gesture of selflessness, he sends them off to be married, promising to convince the Mikado that he has killed him. Here is where things get a little bit complicated, so... The Mikado arrives early at Kotilska's behest and demands an audience with the Lord High Executioner. Cloakow's ready. He describes in vivid and graphic detail how he executed Ethelrun and proudly hands him the forged death certificate, not knowing that Ethelrun is actually in fact the Mikado's son. So he's just told him that he's killed his son. Although the Lord of Catan is sympathetic to the poor tailor, he nonetheless sentences him to death, and now Cloakow's in a real bind. If he persists with the lie that Ethelrun is dead, then he gets killed too. If he reveals that he is in fact alive, then Kotilska will insist both of them die for marrying him to Nayum. There's only one way out, and he takes it. The Mikado has postponed his execution until after lunch, giving him time to meet Kotilska alone in the gardens, and he attempts to seduce her with a little song about heartbreak. Miraculously, it works.
Wow.
And the two are quickly married. This revelation solves everything, I think. Now that Kotilska is married, she has no claim on Ethelrun, who can now safely come back to life, meaning Cloakow doesn't have to be executed. And so everyone is happy. Kind of.
Right.
Wow.
There's a bit at the end where they're not quite sure of the Mikado's saying, yes, but you lied to me. You lied to me about killing him. And then Cloakow says, well, yeah, it is true that I stated that I had killed him, but it's because your Majesty's will is law, and your Majesty's will is so powerful that when your Majesty says a thing should be done, then that thing may as well be done. And it practically is done, and if it is done, then why not say so? Nothing could possibly be more satisfactory, and then it ends. So even though it ends in a very silly way, it is actually very funny.
I noticed you put down a 9 for dramatic potential in that one, which is your highest mark so far in that field.
Yeah, I thought one, the impending kind of like threats of the looming of death and things like that.
There's a lot of shadows over this one, isn't there? There's a lot of, especially the character of Cloakow, who is in constant threat of dying the whole way through.
Like I feel like there's always, and it's maybe more limited, like linked to the stakes. It's just like I feel like there's more of a drive for certain characters.
Yeah.
Here. I really, for some reason, the flirting thing. Really sticks with me because I feel like I don't know, like in a place where flirting is illegal and you don't. I think of this like having watched documentaries about Japan and like how just
the whole social hierarchy
and things like that,
the reserved nature,
becomes so much more taboo that people actually start to lose something that's actually very necessary to the human condition, which is just the intimacy or the idea of flirting, I think, possibly being part of that. You know?
Interesting.
So, yeah, and I think having to break that, or the thing that leads you to want to, need to want to make that connection.
Because the execution was still happening. People were still trying and failing.
Exactly. You know? And so to brave that, and also maybe that kind of sadness to feel like there's something that you want to do.
Yeah.
There's a distance that you want to kind of mitigate, but you don't have the skill to actually do it.
Well, yeah.
I feel like it could be really quite heartbreaking or like touching. Obviously, I don't know how it's portrayed, but
This is the really interesting thing, Shran, because the thing is, like, I don't think that anybody has ever said the words that you said about the Mikado, but they really should be thinking about that. because that's the thing. I don't think that people generally think about the no flirting law when they direct their chorus.
Oh my gosh.
But actually, they really should be, and it hadn't even occurred to me how important that is.
This is how we bring these
Especially
genres into the modern
it is
era
that
by
as well, and
Yeah.
they've got that
putting
idea
like
of
today's values on top of it.
being
Yeah.
social and
Exactly. Yeah, the thing is, because like some of these concepts are kind of related to Japan. I mean, having been to Japan many times myself, I mean, especially young women really are encouraged to be very reserved. So it's possible it came from that. But then the thing is, in those days, British women were also quite reserved. So I don't know how accurate that really is.
Nanyum isn't reserved at all. She's
That's
very.
the thing.
She's
like
quite.
the actual the girls in the MIKADO are actually very confident people.
Yeah.
And there's very little. What's so great about it is there is very little kind of difference between the genders. Like everyone's just kind of in it together. They're all just guys together, and they all talk like people.
Yeah.
I think, which is a really cool thing.
It's probably the best dialogue in the canon.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But I mean, not that should affect your
Of course not. You know.
Yeah. How did you find the clarity of it? Like, did you follow it?
I followed it.
Yeah.
I gave it a relatively low score for clarity.
Yeah.
I
Just
feel like
because.
you got muddled towards the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of exposition I need to dump on you to make
That's
it
the
work.
thing.
That's-
Yeah.
Which can be summed up in 3 seconds on stage, but on this, you know.
No,
Yeah, it's exposition. It is exposition heavy, and how easily that gets across, you won't know until you see it. But I would say that clarity is like listening to your synopsis of it. Like you had to, and there were even a couple of things you left out.
I had to, yeah.
I wish you had to kind of.
I had to completely miss out whole characters in order
Yeah,
to do this.
yeah. But I think you did a very good job with that.
Topsy-turviness, comedy.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
The thing is, because
I don't know how to judge that one.
it seems like the story itself
It's one of the more
isn't
sense-making,
very
isn't
funny.
it?
Yeah.
But actually, it's the funniness is in the characters and the dialogue.
Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, it is interesting how when you hear the story like that, it actually sounds very serious. Number 10 is RUDDIGORE, which is the one that Dan and I were just in the summer.
I gotta say,
Yay.
so far, and I'm again very fresh to this, but so far I think this is my favourite.
All right.
So I'm looking forward to this one. RUDDIGORE, or the Witch's Curse.
Sick.
Okay, witches.
There's witches. Well, there's a witch.
One's enough.
Our story begins with the small village of Reddering in Cornwall, and a lot of unhappy bridesmaids. This is quite possibly the only village in the world with a professional bridal party attached, and yet there have been no weddings for months. You see, the most eligible maiden in the village, one Rose Maybud, is so unbelievably beautiful that all the men are too shy to ask her. And until she is taken, nobody else stands a chance. They're even pressuring Rose's aunt, Dame Hannah, to marry, but she has forsworn men since she was betrothed to the bad Baronet of RUDDIGORE.
Awesome.
What's the bad Baronet of RUDDIGORE? Excellent question, Emma. I'll tell you right now. A few centuries ago, there lived a man named Sir Rupert Murgatroyd,
And that's who Dan played.
Oh,
Yay! Who loved burning witches. That is, until one of them cursed him, and anyone who bore his title to commit a crime every day or die in agony. As a result, every subsequent Baronet of RUDDIGORE was quite appropriately labelled bad. There is, however, one man in town that Rose has eyes for. A young farmer by the name of Robin Oakapple. I know, he's very cute. But when it comes to shyness, he is unsurpassed. And although he's as mad for her as she is for him, nothing will spur him into action. There is also the very slight issue of his real name being Riven Murgatroyd, and he should have been the bad Baronet of RUDDIGORE. But quite understandably, he didn't feel much like being cursed and faked his own death many years ago, passing the title and its curse to his younger brother, Despard. Shyness aside, Robin's got a plan. His foster brother, Richard Dauntless, is back in town after a 10-year stint with the Navy, and he is anything but shy. So Robin asks Richard to propose to Rose on his behalf. That is a lot of R names. The plan starts without a hitch. Richard marches into the market square, catches sight of Rose, and instantly falls in love with her himself. He immediately proposes on his own behalf, and Rose, tired of waiting for Robin, accepts.
No!
When Robin hears about this, he is somewhat put out, but it turns out this is just the kick in the pants he needed. With some deft conversation, he convinces Rose that it's actually him she wants to marry, and poor Richard is left washed up. As the couple skip off and prepare their nuptials, a shadow creeps across the street. A strange figure in tattered clothes and ragged hair swats a fly with her bare hand. No one is quite sure who she was. These days they just call her Mad Margaret. She plops to the floor and weeps openly. Rose, being the kind girl she is, goes to comfort her, and it turns out this is a very bad idea, as Margaret is not sad but angry. She has learned that the bad baronet is abroad, and is attempting to carry off Rose today as his daily crime. Many years ago, Margaret loved him, well, madly, and she won't suffer anyone else to have him. Before she can do anything, however, the sky darkens, thunder cracks, and in steps Sir Despard Murgatroyd, the bad baronet of Ruddigore. He isn't all that bad, as it turns out. In fact, he spends most of his time doing really good things to balance out his daily crimes. He is just considering whether building a cathedral would be fair compensation for carrying off Rose, when he's interrupted by the smell of bilge water. Richard is back, and he has a plan of his own, a plan to make Rose his wife after all. He approaches Despard and tells him all about his elder brother Riven, how he is very much alive, is living in this village, and is about to marry Rose Maybud. Dun dun dun. Wedding bells ring, the bridesmaids are ecstatic, Robin waits at the altar beaming while Rose walks down the aisle, and the church sings a merry madrigal to celebrate their union. But as the couples are about to take their vows, the doors fly open and in strides Sir Despard. "Hold, bride and bridegroom," he bellows, "ere you wed each other. I claim young Robin as my elder brother." The crowd is in shock. Robin's world crumbles to dust as he admits the truth. He is Despard's older brother, the bad baronet of Ruddigore. Faced with this knowledge, Rose tearfully breaks off their engagement, as she can only marry a virtuous man. She tries to propose to Despard briefly, because of course he's a nice man now, only to be rejected. Despard, now free of the curse, is finally able to marry the woman he once promised his hand to, Mad Margaret. Presumably from a crack in the floorboards, Margaret bounds into Despard's arms, and Rose, with a little reluctance, settles for Richard instead. The bridesmaids celebrate, because for them one wedding is as good as another, and Robin takes his rightful place as the bad baronet of Ruddigore. 1 week later, Robin, that is Riven, is trying very hard but not being a very bad baronet. He's dutifully committed a crime every single day, but let's just say they're not the most evil. He couldn't even deny Richard and Rose permission to marry when they asked for it. As they disappear out the door, Robin turns to the great picture gallery of Ruddigore, portrait after portrait of baronets across the ages. He falls to his knees in anguish, asking them for guidance and mercy. And then all the candles suddenly blow out. He struggles to relight one, only to see dozens of gaunt, white faces staring at him out of the dark. The ghostly spectre of every baronet of Ruddigore has climbed out of their portraits, led by the terrible figure of Sir Roderick Murgatroyd, Robin's uncle and the last bad baronet. He is not very happy with such crimes as disinheriting his only son that he doesn't have. Technically a crime, but still. Half the ghosts want to kill him there and then, but Roderick declares he will allow these little crimes if Robin carries off a lady for his crime today. After some convincing and a little bit of torture, Robin agrees. Satisfied, the spectres melt back into their portraits, and the lighting returns to normal. Robin wastes no time. He swiftly dispatches a minion to carry off a lady without specifying which. And before he can fully recover, he's visited again, this time by Despard and Margaret, now happily married and completely sane and stable. Apart from a few mild relapses, they have come to implore Robin to find a way to defy the curse and be the good man that he is. And even though it will almost certainly spell his doom, Robin agrees. But it's too late. The deed is done. His minion returns with a very angry Dame Hannah, who proceeds to fight Robin with a poniard. Robin screams for Roderick to save him, but as the ghostly figure emerges from his portrait, it is revealed that Roderick is the baronet that Hannah fell in love with all those years ago. The pair reconcile and mourn their love that never was. Until Robin has an idea. When you're a bad baronet of Ruddigore, if you refuse to commit a crime, then surely that's tantamount to suicide. But suicide is in itself a crime.
Aha.
So from a legal perspective, all the ghosts are very much alive, or should be. This revelation solves everything. The ghosts are happy to once again be alive. The title of baronet is returned to the eldest Murgatroyd, Sir Rupert, which means Robin and Rose can be together, and the curse has lost its power forever.
What in the blue hell?
Not high parts for clarity then, I'm guessing.
No!
Wow!
It's getting low clarity.
What are we doing? Seriously, what's going on?
Oh, you wait till we get to the gondoliers.
It's like, there's so many points. I was like, so why are we doing this? Why is this happening? Like, seriously.
The thing is, what would you say about like dramatic high stakes and like and
It's
things
getting
like that?
high stakes.
Yeah.
They seem to be raising the stakes the further down the line they go.
Yeah. I definitely feel that. I love the scene of like the portraits coming alive.
Oh, it's
that is absolutely
fabulous.
really nice.
I
Yeah,
love that
Yeah,
moment.
big fan of that.
I'm also really interested in the idea of like the curse. Like, is it a curse? Like the whole thing with you find out that the parentage is different or whatever, and so one guy is actually the guy with the curse instead of the guy that thought he had the curse.
Yeah.
So is the curse?
If the curse is attached to the person who holds
It's attached
the
to
title.
the title rather than the
But
genealogy.
this, is,
Yeah.
but this is what I mean. Like, is it some magical curse, or is it this idea that like if you're allowed to do something, or if you feel like you've got an excuse to do something that allows your morals to change?
Well, that's a really interesting point because, as I said, it's not actually the witch in any way that's enforcing this curse. It's in fact his ancestors that are enforcing the curse. Which means maybe, and we've talked about this, we've entertained this thought, that perhaps the curse doesn't exist at all. Perhaps it's just something that was done and this inherited horrible weight has just been passed from one Murgatroyd to the next without any real need for it to be. As is discovered in the end, none of them needed to die at all.
At all.
Actually, as Dan and I discovered, I think, well, to some extent, I discovered this a while ago with my friend Will, but this whole piece is actually about mental illness and about like generational trauma, because all the characters have some kind of mental affliction. So Rose, which you kind of
I didn't even mention it.
But so Rose Maybird is completely like attached to this book because she was abandoned as a baby, and in her basket that she was abandoned in, all there was her like blanket and this book of etiquette.
Interesting.
And so she is unusually attached to this book, and she doesn't do anything unless this book says she's okay to do it.
Right.
Because this is both hilarious but also like really horrifying.
I'm pretty convinced that the whole ghost scene is based on the end of Don Giovanni by Mozart when he meets his dad,
Yeah.
the ghost of the big statue.
Yeah.
But
There's Hamlet references in it as well.
Hmm.
When he meets Roderick, he goes, "Alas, poor ghost."
Oh, he does, doesn't he?
You get a 7 for dramatic potential. Okay.
Trampen.
Potential.
Meaning today.
Dramatic potential.
Meaning today. What was the part at the beginning about someone was so attractive?
Oh, that's Rose Maybud. She's so attractive that none of the men are brave enough to propose to her.
See, I feel like that definitely chimes with me. Just the shittiness of dating and how much it kind of like can affect.
Yeah.
I think there's like 80-20 thing.
Yeah, there are a ton
Yeah.
of communication issues in this
Yeah.
show as well between people. Now, there's this wonderful dialogue with Rose and Robin where that they go to each other and you can just feel the tension between them, and they're like,
It is fine.
I wish to say that it is fine. Anything else? But we do want rain. We do want rain. And that it's just that having this conversation about the weather, but it's really like
It's
sexually and
that-
romantically
Yeah.
charged.
Yeah.
So I think that. I think in terms of its, I would say that the a big part of the story here is just when human communication fails,
Yeah.
and how that has caused like ridiculous consequences.
And I think that's so prevalent today.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
There's
yeah,
a lot
absolutely.
in here.
so
that
many
is-
different
Yeah.
different ways, whether politics, dating, whatever. Like I think.
The Yeomen of
Sorry,
the
Yeoman.
Guard.
Sorry.
So this is number 11.
Yeah.
The Yeomen of the Guard, or The Merry Man and His Maid. That's the subtitle.
I just want to add that this was the hardest one to write.
And another one where
What she said.
communication is an important thing. But this one is heavy.
Okay.
So
Okay.
sit back and relax.
Here we go.
All right.
In the White Tower, within the Tower of London, Phoebe sadly sits at a spinning wheel. That
Spinning
spinning
wheels,
wheel
though, yeah.
is very important. Like, the whole show will actually be ruined if the spinning wheel isn't there. Seriously, if you ever put it on, spinning wheel.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
Wilfred, the head jailer and assistant torturer, tries to cheer her up, as one does to the girl you fancy. But Phoebe only has eyes for Colonel Fairfax, a prisoner at the tower who is due to be beheaded for the crime of witchcraft.
Ooh.
Luckily for her, she has a very kind father, Sergeant Merrill, who has served with Fairfax before and owes him his life. It also just so happens that Phoebe's brother Leonard is going to start working at the tower as a yeoman today. So the plan is this. Fairfax will be released from his cell, assume Leonard's identity, and hold it until the heat dies down. I'd like to say that that's the end of a foolproof plan, but this is GNS, so yeah. Fairfax himself knows nothing of this and is solemnly preparing for his execution. But he does have a final request. He really doesn't want his cousin inheriting all his things. So he asks someone to marry him before he dies. Doesn't matter who, just someone.
Because importantly, his cousin framed him for the crime.
Yeah,
He's
which is
actually
why he's in
innocent.
jail.
Yeah. So.
And so, off go the guards to outside the tower where a comedic duo are performing for the masses. Jack Point, the jester, and his singing friend Elsie. They're just in the middle of a song when Elsie is taken aside by the guards and offered the chance to earn a lot of money by being married to someone for an hour or so. Jack's not pleased, as he wanted to marry Elsie himself, but he's convinced once he discovered the man is going to be beheaded. One shotgun wedding later, and Fairfax is a married man. He goes back to his cell and waits for death. Only to be released, stuffed into a Beefeater uniform, and told his name is now Leonard. As the hour of execution comes and goes, the tower is in uproar. The two schemes, although both of them succeeded, have been the spanner in the other's works.
No.
Fairfax is now pretending to be her brother, so Phoebe finds him as out of reach as ever. And Elsie, hoping for a quick 2-hour married life, is still very firmly in wedlock. Not to mention Wilfred is now being blamed for an escaped prisoner in the tower. So much confusion! Oh. 2 days have passed, and still no sign of Fairfax. Wilfred and Jack are discussing each other's careers when the jester has an idea. If Fairfax was declared dead, then Elsie would be free for him to marry. So he agrees to teach Wilfred how to be a jester if he will say that he's shot Fairfax dead as he tried to escape. Fairfax, meanwhile, is feeling somewhat odd about marrying someone so quickly and then not having the decency to die and set her free. He doesn't even know who she is because they were married in blindfolds, so he insists that Sergeant Merrill reveals that it is Elsie who is his bride. The two spend some time together, not revealing that they're actually married, when a gunshot is heard from the wall. Wilfred emerges and proudly states that he has killed Fairfax in the moat. The tower breathes a sigh of relief, but before Jack can move in on Elsie, he discovers that she has already fallen in love with the heroic Leonard, upending his plans yet again. Phoebe is in tears at the sight of her beloved being married to another. Wilfred attempts to calm her down again, but in a fit of emotion, she reveals the whole scheme to him. And now the solution is obvious. She agrees to marry him in exchange for his silence, because, that's totally healthy. Just when you thought this couldn't get any more confusing, the real Leonard arrives, explaining that Fairfax has been pardoned by the Crown. This revelation solves everything. Phoebe and Wilfred get married, Leonard can finally start working at the tower, and Elsie and Fairfax have a proper wedding. Everyone's happy except Jack, who is kind of catatonic at this point. But,
because what happens is when the wedding actually takes place at the end, Elsie still believes that she's going to be marrying Leonard.
Right.
But then the wedding is interrupted by Fairfax coming on and saying, actually, no, I'm thy bride, because I'm Fairfax and I actually survived. And she kind of doesn't see him. For some reason, she doesn't just turn around and look at him. She's crying on the floor.
She's I've had enough of this by now.
But then he reveals he reveals that Fairfax is Leonard, and she's happy. But then Jack Point comes on and makes one final plea to her, which is often considered one of the most dramatic moments in the canon, a bit like the IOLANTHE moment. Jack Point comes on, makes one more plea to her, and she just rejects him very, very kindly by kind of singing a song that they sang together before, but saying, look, I feel for you, but he's the one I love. And it's really quite crushing at the end. It's
in some versions he dies.
Yeah, he often dies of heartbreak at the end. All throughout it. So Jack Point is a character that most people want to play.
Right.
He is a performer, but he's very socially anxious and is unable to tell Elsie really how he feels about her. And so because he failed to communicate this to her in time, it then becomes too late. And all throughout, there's this thing he keeps saying over and over again, isn't the world just hilarious? Isn't life just hilarious? Even out of tragedy, you can find comedy, which is also something Paul Stebbings does.
This is true.
Out of tragedy, you can find comedy, and you can watch him try and maintain this positive attitude that gradually just becomes like a mental breakdown. Even though it's very much like a GNS opera, it's still got comedy moments in it. It's pervaded over by just watching this man just completely lose it as well. So it's quite a heavy one, but it's a lot of people's favourite.
I feel like a lot of these, a lot of them have been about the different things that love do to us.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
It feels something very, very, very central to the human experience.
There is
For either better or worse.
So, Discuss.
Yeah, what do you think of
Oh
terms
wow,
of
okay,
clarity?
that's your lowest rating yet.
It's getting like nothing for clarity.
Yeah.
Granted,
Having said that, like the exposition was super clear in your synopsis, but I also feel like it's just one of those ones that you have to watch.
No, I get it. I
Yeah.
completely
Get it?
understand that.
I think
It was
Because,
the hardest one
like,
to
I
write.
can imagine because there's
When
just
you
so many moving parts.
When you talked about the stakes just in that moment, that almost doubled the stakes in my mind.
Yeah.
It's like for
Yeah,
me, it
totally.
was like it was a 3-4 situation, but that was an 8 moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, Jack Point's ending is
Leonard is not a hero's name. That's just
No, it is not.
Leave Leonard
I think
alone.
just-
I like Phoebe at the beginning. I enjoy her predicament. I think that's interesting. That's again like dramatic potential. That's quite high. Like that. And yeah, in terms of what love can do to us, meaning today continues to be relevant.
Yeah.
Timeless issue.
Yeah. Have you ever watched As You Like It?
Do you know what? I actually haven't. It's one of the ones that I've never watched.
actually
Yeah, I don't really know it too
Because
well.
if you had, then you would see the massive parallel between Phoebe here and Phoebe there.
there.
Yeah, because she too has a man that she doesn't think very much of, following her everywhere, trying to gain her affection, and ends up with him at the end.
Interesting.
So you know,
Interesting.
What's that
and
say
she's
about
not a very
relationship?
likable character in Shakespeare, or indeed. In this, I'm sorry, I don't like Phoebe in Yeoman. I don't.
Oh, I love it. She's just very immature.
I find her
Right.
just being sort of playing with people's lives with the soul, with just for satisfying her own little crush with Fairfax. You know,
That's
it's-
interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
that's my. I'm backing out. I don't have any. dog
No,
in this fight,
I
but,
kind
you know.
of I feel like that's generally sometimes my problem with. Sometimes the love feels a bit frivolous especially when you come from a certain period of time.
No, what?
It just feels too frivolous. Like, and when like loads of things are based on the love, and it's like, bruv, you're not even talking about love. You're talking about some sort of infatuation, or
Well,
you're
agreed.
interested in this person for 2 weeks. But
Sometimes it is that long.
But I think in this one, they made a really big effort to make the love stories like very true and like genuine and serious. So like they made a big effort to really go away from some of their more frivolous beginnings with this one.
Okay.
However, then when we move on to the final 3 operas, you'll see that they go in a rather more different direction. Number 12, The Gondoliers.
Or the King of Barataria.
yes,
Ah, Venice. City of romance, culture, and of course, singing water taxis.
Yay!
Marco and Giuseppe Palmieri are the most eligible watermen in all the city. And they've assembled a large crowd of women, for today is their wedding day. Well, they're not sure who they're marrying yet, but hey-ho.
okay, fine.
And immediately low mark.
No, that's getting 5 stars.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
The 2 gondoliers decide to choose their brides in the most comprehensive way possible. A game of blind man's buff.
So stupid.
Oh. Yes, it is, I agree. After a lot of potential cheating, Marco ends up with Gianetta and Giuseppe with Tessa. And off the happy couples go for a double wedding!
Yay!
The end! It sounds like the end, doesn't it? Elsewhere, His Grace, the Duke of Plaza Toro, his wife, the Duchess, his daughter Casilda, and his favourite drummer, Luis, not being able to travel with a full band, have arrived from Spain.
Yes!
There they are to meet the Grand Inquisitor to discuss a very secretive matter, which only in that moment do they reveal to their daughter. When Casilda was only 6 months old, she was married to the infant prince of Barataria. That same prince was spirited away and hidden in Venice to escape a nationwide insurrection that murdered the royal family.
I know who he is.
As a result, I thought you might. As a result, Casilda is now the ruling queen, and they have come to Venice to find her husband, the king. Casilda is somewhat affronted that she was married without her consent, but the Duke reminds her that the prince was only 1 at the time, so youthful mistakes are to be expected. Unbeknownst to him, Casilda already has her eyes on another. Once the Duke and Duchess have left, Casilda jumps into the arms of Luis the drummer, with whom she has been courting for a while. However, now that she is queen, it will be impossible to continue, and they resign themselves to a life without each other. The Grand Inquisitor arrives, and reveals that he has narrowed down the identity of the king to 2 gondoliers.
I knew it!
Guess which 2? Luckily, there is one person who can reveal which of them it is. An old woman who used to be the prince's nanny, who also happens to be Louise's mother. It will, however, take time to find her and extract the information. Inquisitors, am I right? When the brothers hear this, they are perplexed. It's a curious sensation to discover that one of you is king, but not to know which. Despite Venice and all her people being Republican, technically, their wives are delighted at the prospect of being queen, and the decision is made. Until the king is identified, the brothers shall go to Barataria and act as one individual. One slight hitch.
Obsessed.
The Inquisitor forbids the women to accompany them, being fully aware that the king, whoever he may be, has already married Casilda, though he keeps that detail to himself. He assures them that once the true king is found, their wives can join them. So, with their head full of Republican ideals of creating an equal Barataria, Giuseppe and Marco sail away, leaving their wives behind.
Giuseppe and Marco?
Yeah, that's their names.
Did they fight? I feel like they didn't fight very hard. Sorry, I'm interrupting the story
That's all right.
before even...
Well, if you have a question, voice it.
What about, did they want to leave their wives? Or did
It's
they die?
only for a time.
Yeah,
It's only for a
once
few
they found the
days.
king, they can come along, yeah. 3 months later, in the land of Barataria, the brothers have staffed the court with fellow gondoliers from home and have made everyone equal, no matter their position. But it's not all peaches and cream. They have to do all the work throughout the palace. They have to share a single ration of food, as they are technically acting as one person, and they miss their wives terribly. Suddenly, to their great delight, Tessa and Ginetta appear, having led the women across the sea, unable to bear the separation. At once, a great feast and dance is arranged to celebrate their reunion. But in the middle of the festivities, the Grand Inquisitor appears, and he's none too pleased. In order to equalise the classes, the brothers have elevated everyone to the rank of Lord. A downright blasphemous idea to the Inquisitor. A Lord High Chancellor shouldn't be dancing with a cook. Not even a Lord High Cook. Not to mention the women of Venice have disobeyed him and come to court. Left with no other option, he reveals the truth, that neither wife will be queen, and one is an unintentional bigamist. The Duke of Platatoro arrives in style with his wife and Casilda, ready for the announcing. They are, however, appalled at the lack of manners and elegance. The Duke hurriedly gives them a lesson in etiquette, while the Duchess teaches Casilda how to handle her new husband. At last, the thruple are left alone. Casilda explains that she will be a good and loyal wife, but she cannot love them, as her heart belongs to someone else. To her surprise, the gondoliers agree with her sentiments, introducing their wives. For a while, they tried to solve the problem with arithmetic, but it seems that this is too big for maths to solve. Trumpets sound, the courtiers gather, and an old lady with the occasional torture scar is led into the room by the Inquisitor. The moment is finally at hand. Who is king? Who shall wear the crown? Before I reveal it, any theories?
I think they're twins. I think they're both king at the same time.
Ooh, I had no theories.
Okay,
Sorry.
fair enough. The nursemaid explains. When the prince was spirited away, she was afraid the uprising would find him in Venice. So she switched the prince with her own son and raised the prince as his own.
As her own.
As her own. Forget. Yeah. Don't break the tension. His name, Luis. The drummer boy steps awkwardly forward into the room full of regalia, and Casilda embraces him, weeping with joy. This revelation solves everything. Casilda is now free to be with the man she loves. The gondoliers are put out at not being king, but can return to Venice with their wives. And the court has a huge dance party to celebrate, much to the chagrin of the Inquisitor.
10 out of 10, my friend. 10 out of 10.
Oh my god!
Yeah, we got a dance party at the end.
I love
as well,
that.
So
I love that.
That's top marks.
Listen, it's getting an 8 for clarity because there were some moments where I was like, travel across the seas.
Yeah,
you know?
I'll go 7 for clarity. Because it's
Okay.
okay.
What have you got written down here?
Dramatic potential. I've gone with a 7.
What about this? In this writing?
Oh, sorry, this little thing.
Yes,
Ideas act a certain way. No, I just enjoyed that. Like, I enjoyed the idea that stuck with me for the meaning today is the thing about like everyone being lord in order to make people equal, everyone becoming lords.
Rather than bringing people down, they brought everyone up.
They brought everyone up, but that also then led this because you've been assigned a certain position.
Yeah.
That then apparently assigns a certain number of behavioural like things that you need to do or can't do or whatever. And it's just like I feel like that's very, very applicable today. Based on whatever team that you're on, you have to believe this, you have to do this or whatever, or say this, otherwise you're not part of the team.
Well, I just love the idea that like the cook has been the cook has been elevated to the Lord High Cook.
Yeah.
So he's still the cook. He still cooks meals. The difference is he's not looked down on by anyone for being a cook, which is great.
Yeah, it's like has status actually. Like, so I think that idea and how I think is actually quite relevant today.
Yeah, no, I love that. Super interesting.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed Gondoliers.
You think Gondoliers
fucking
plot.
bonkers?
I think
So
Gondoliers
good.
wins so far with you.
Yes. So, like, the gondoliers as 2 dudes just seem like great. I want to have dinner with them.
They're very great guys. They're lovely
I want to be
guys.
their friend.
Marco and Giuseppe are
they're
great.
They're just hanging out, like, singing some songs.
Everyone
It's
loves
awesome.
Who's the king?
Yeah.
I know who the king is. Everyone loves that.
Also, like, just the fact that it starts off with them choosing wives out of blind man's butt.
That's a bit weird.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I mean, I don't have any evidence for this,
All
but
three of us pretend to be the same person. Yes, bro. Absolutely.
So there we go, the gondoliers.
Big fan.
Universal success. Yeah, you guys are really doing what I thought you'd do. Utopia Limited, or The Flowers of Progress.
So, here we go. Welcome to Utopia, a lush South Pacific island where King Paramount has sent his eldest daughter Zara to be educated in England in order to further civilize this strange land. And what a strange land it is. The king's behaviour is watched over by 2 wise men named Scaphio and Phantis. And if he behaves in an unkingly way, they shall report to Tarara, the public exploder, who will then proceed to blow him up with dynamite and take over as king.
That's raw, bro.
Seriously. The gentle art of politics. A good plan to keep a monarch in check, if the wise men are objective. These ones, however, regularly use their leverage to manipulate the king, often making him write newspaper articles about himself being a tyrant. His 2 younger daughters, currently in education with an English governess named Lady Sophie, whom the king is very fond of, and he just hopes none of them are reading the papers, just like all politicians. Zara returns to Utopia with an escort of lifeguards and 6 English gentlemen. A crowd gathers to welcome the princess home, and it turns out England's made an impression on her. In fact, she brought 6 experts over to make Utopia a bit more anglicised, including the familiar face of Captain Corcoran from HMS Pinafore, who has mysteriously become a base in the time, we're not sure why. Inspired by his daughter's fervour and anxious to escape the clutches of his wise men, King Paramount pronounces he will turn Utopia into a limited liability corporation. Something not even England has done. Yet. And if it's good enough for England, the most morally blameless country in the world, well, it's good enough for us. In no time at all, the land of Utopia is transformed into a perfect, anglicised, well, Utopia. Paramount and his English advisors are happily wallowing in their achievements. There are now no slums. Famine is abolished. Creative art is appreciated. And justice is universal, even for government officials, just like in England. It's not all well, though. Scapio and Fantis remind the king of their power over him, but of course they only have the power to blow up the king, not the head of a limited company. Nonetheless, they hatch a scheme to reverse the changes, but we'll get to that a bit later. The king, empowered by all these changes, finally gets the courage to tell Lady Sophie the truth about his newspapers and his feelings for her. Now convinced that he's not a tyrannical psychopath who boils people in oil, she happily agrees to marry him. The celebrations are cut short, however, as an angry mob storms the palace. Scapio and Fantis have convinced the masses that all these changes are actually terrible ideas. They've brought an end to war, making the army and navy useless. Sanitation is so good there's no disease and the doctors are all out of work. The laws are so perfect that there is no crime for the police to fight. Luckily, Princess Zara has a solution. She's forgotten the most important part of English society: government by party. In a two-party system, one party will always undo the work of the other. Here's hoping. And thus no progress will ever be made. This revelation solves everything. Scapio and Fantis are thrown in jail, all relevant couples pair up, and Zara leads them in a song, praising England as the bravest of the brave, and cowards are the rarest things to be found. Except, of course, in Downing Street.
You just added that yourself.
Yeah, I want it to be a bit more political, if you can imagine that, right?
Yeah, so I think that this opera attempts to do like a satire on colonialism. So
Yes.
it's like it's a very deep and dark topic.
Yeah.
And like, but it's done in a way that I feel like Gilbert himself wasn't really an expert on the topic, so I think various elements of it are a bit confused, but that's the main theme: colonialism, about what it means to be English and what English values could do to like transform a kind of barbaric nation.
What decade
very
was it written in?
This is 1893.
This is 93.
Wow.
This was literally during the colonization of like much of Africa, like European countries.
Yeah.
So it's probably the darkest and most real
Topic. If not the opera. But you know.
What do you think? What do you think of it?
I wouldn't necessarily approach it from a colonial. I didn't go colonial with it.
Okay.
But I did go like globalization with it.
Yeah, sure.
Where it is this high, like everything feels like the same, and you go to this new perfect place, but it just needs something. It needs a Starbucks. It needs McDonald's. It needs a this. It needs a that. So everything becomes the actual same thing, no matter where you go. And I think that is actually quite, the silliness of it is actually quite prevalent.
Yeah, because I remember first going to China in 2015, and then when I last went in 2019, like it was vastly different.
Yeah, right.
Like with like Starbucks, McDonald's, everything. Like even in just those 4 or 5 years, like lots of places have totally transformed. Whole buildings were just gone and things in their place. And it's like, and I think throughout, even though this opera is very funny, it's sad to kind of see their culture being eradicated.
Yeah.
And I think Gilbert was. I don't know if anyone else was writing stuff like this at the time. You know,
Well,
it's
because
very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reason why I don't know what to say is because, I mean, it's Thomas More, right? It's Thomas More's Utopia that he's
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know.
And if
I don't know. I just found the different political models that he was putting forward, or they were putting forward. Who writes the book actually? Out of interest, did they both write the book together?
Gilbert
No,
writes
just
the book.
Gilbert.
Gilbert.
Yeah.
Sullivan writes the music.
Right. Thank you. It could have been really interesting, but I think like you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said he doesn't seem like an expert necessarily. So when he puts forward all of these different structures, they're so confused that they can't critique each other.
There's a lot of missed opportunity in this, isn't
Right.
there?
As I was saying like last night, the idea of somebody being at threat of death if they put forward a bad idea is actually a very real system
Super
they did
interesting.
use in ancient Greece.
Yeah.
So it's actually and if you think about it, that system that's in place, it actually isn't any more ridiculous than any other kind of system of government. And I think that is like where the topsy-turviness of it comes in. Because like we're meant to think that this place is really barbaric, but actually when they come over and bring English ideals in, we see, oh, actually, this is like way more ridiculous than what these people had in place already. What do you think about the kind of like comedy, dramaticness?
Well, we've got a 9 for comedy over here.
It gets.
It's got very funny bits.
Topsy turvy vibes as well. Like, and I think you're right. I think for its period, for it to present any kind of ambivalence towards the notion of conquesting and colonialism more broadly, I think it's quite something. And yeah, the fact that it's, I also am interested in the idea that it explores an individual coming back to the seat of power to be subsumed by or to absorb culture and then return and for that to be presented as something that is problematic in 1893 is great.
And so at the start we are presented with this really powerful looking nation with these people really richly dressed, and Scapula and Phantus are these like amazing, powerful, clever wise men, and their kind of rule is pretty much absolute. Like they can do whatever they want, but then as soon as the English people arrive, they're basically nothing. And it shows how the king has gone from being manipulated by these two men
To manipulated by some
to
other...
just being manipulated by other people. But that's what Gilbert's just so good at doing. You know, he's good at like making you laugh at really tragic things. This is called the Grand Duke or the Statutory Duel.
Here we go.
The statutory jewel.
That is not a show. That is not a song from the show. But it should be. The people of Fenig Halbfenig.
Wales?
Germany, I believe.
Stop lying. What, half penny?
Fenig
It's set
Halbfenig.
in Bavaria.
Bavaria. Are subject to the whims of a miserly Grand Duke. And there is a secret cabal formed to overthrow him. The members of this group are a troupe of actors and are able to identify one another by eating a sausage roll.
Fantastic.
Oh, lovely.
That's really fantastic.
The stranger, in turn, also eats a sausage roll. They can be trusted as a member of the cult.
Nice.
One candidate for Grand Duke, presuming the overthrow happens, is Ernest Dummkopf, the leader of Fenig Halbfenig's great theatrical troupe, who promises the company positions in the new court, according to their current professional precedents in the company. Ludwig, his lead comedian, is a bit upset about this, feeling that Ernest is too boring to actually practically be a ruler, and would nearly have the kind of panache that he would. And he is about to marry Lisa, the company's soubrette, and Ernest has refused to lend him their beautiful Greek costumes in case it rains. However, he does insist that if a man can rule a theatrical company for 10 years, he can rule anything. It's here where we meet Julia, the lead actress of the company, whose dramatic skill is so profound that audiences even forgive her strong English accent. For the record, it's set in Germany, she's an English girl, and she's the only one with a strong German accent. That's the joke. She realises that if Ernest were to become the Grand Duke as the top actress, she would have to become the Grand Duchess. Ugh. Although this is a very unfortunate stipulation, she agrees, very reluctantly, to do it. Suddenly, they are interrupted by the angry chorus. It turns out that Ludwig accidentally revealed the impending plot to the Grand Duke's detective. As he explains, he ate a sausage roll, and the detective ate 3! So Ludwig assumed he could talk freely. As Julia points out, plenty of people eat sausage rolls who are not conspirators.
I love this.
Ludwig says that they shouldn't, it's bad form. Overhearing their predicament, the company lawyer points out there's a way to solve this problem. Ludwig and Ernest must fight a statutory duel.
Standard.
This means that rather than fighting with pistols or swords, they each draw a card from a deck. And the person who draws the lowest card legally dies.
Oh, shit.
And the winner adopts their position and all their responsibilities. So the winner will go to the Grand Duke and in a burst of remorse will declare the now dead man was the leader of the plot and he'll receive a pardon for confessing. So that's how they're going to get out of this problem. And so they fight the duel. Ernest draws a king. Ludwig draws an ace. So Ernest dies and off goes Ludwig to find the Grand Duke. I feel I should mention at this point that Ernest isn't worried. Do you know why?
Why?
Because the law about statutory duels is going to expire tomorrow.
Oh, snap!
So he can come back to life tomorrow. It's foolproof. Enter Rudolph, the Grand Duke of Fennig. Introduces himself, not exactly evil, just incredibly cheap. He almost had an egg for breakfast, but then decided to save it for later. He's chatting with his fiancée, Caroline, who is similarly tight-pocketed, and they sing about all the wonderful things they could afford to buy if they wanted to, but they don't. Just checking. But when Ludwig finds Rudolph, he's cowering on the floor in fear, having just found out from a detective that this crazy man ate a bunch of sausage rolls and revealed this plot against him. So how is he going to survive if everyone wants to kill him? Spur of the moment, Ludwig's got an idea. Fight a statutory duel with me, Grand Duke. And if I win, then I take over your job, get killed, and then you come back tomorrow when the law expires. They have a little tussle in the square to make it look real. Once again, Grand Duke draws a king. Ludwig draws an ace.
No.
Ludwig is now officially the Grand Duke. And then they think to themselves, why couldn't I keep being the Grand Duke? If I am technically the Grand Duke, then I could change the law. Let's extend it for another 100 years. Let's see what that could happen.
Rude.
And he is the Grand Duke for life. The plan, somehow, has gone off without a hitch. The Grand Duke is ousted, the acting company is in government, and everyone will have their positions according to their status. Julia gasps in horror.
Oh my god.
This makes her the Grand Duchess, which means she now has to marry Ludwig, and Lisa is out of the picture. This is not good for Lisa. She tries to convince Julia that, please, we love each other so very much, can I still marry him? Julia's like, no. Darling, dearest, this is a leading role. I'm the leader. you just stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Go over there. Go over there. The next day, the court is decked out in their beautiful Greek costumes. I'm not sure why. Maybe they just thought it would be elegant and like
Old Athens lets exude. It's just for like dramatic and aesthetic reasons.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So for some reason they're dressed as Greeks now.
They were putting on Troilus and Cressida.
Ludwig is happy with his new position, but is still struggling to having broken Lisa's heart and putting up with his new wife. who insists on playing the part of the Grand Duchess with an overly emotional and dramatic temperament, acting out fantasies of him cheating on her and attacking the offending woman before finding out it's actually Ludwig's aunt. Yeah, it's dating Julia sounds like fun. The two are mercifully interrupted by Caroline, Rudolph's old fiancée, who's turned up to marry him as that was the original agreement.
Oh, man.
I know, this is getting very confusing. She insists on marrying Ludwig, and Ludwig's in between a rock and a hard place. And he eventually decides to marry Caroline, and now Julia really does have something to be dramatically sad about. Oh, goodness gracious, this story is very confusing. She meets secretly with Ernest, who begs her to marry him and take him to England, but she insists she can't because, well, he's dead. I can't marry a dead man. Yes, the chorus, meanwhile, is getting absolutely rat-assed
Nice.
at Ludwig's wedding to Caroline
Nice.
before a mysterious guest turns up. And I haven't mentioned this before, so this is going to come as a big shock to you two. The Prince of Monte Carlo. Ludwig, unimpressed, decides to intimidate the prince. When he appears, they do a wild dance to confuse him. The Prince of Monte Carlo, as it turns out, is the father of the princess, who was engaged in infancy to none other than the Grand Duke.
Oh my god.
Caroline tries to protest, but as the princess points out, she has the most prior claim, having been engaged to the Duke for 20 years.
Wow.
As Ludwig despairs at the sheer number of wives he has accumulated, Ernest and Rudolph burst onto the stage, declaring that Ludwig was never the Grand Duke. On closer inspection to the law, it turns out the statutory duel counts the ace as the lowest, not the highest.
Oh my gosh! Literally wrote that down!
Therefore,
Like, seriously!
Ludwig never won the duel. All is forgiven. Rudolph marries the princess, leaving Caroline to wallow in the company of the fabulously rich prince. Julia agrees to marry Ernest, and Lisa finally recaptures Ludwig's heart, and thus ends the epic of Gilbert and Sullivan.
Wow!
God.
4.
No, but do you know what? The sausage eating.
Oh, I love the sausage eating.
It's a 10. It's a strong
That's a
10.
concept. That's heavy on the concept.
There are so much comedic
The
gems.
thing is, I wouldn't really say there's any overlying kind of meaning or message or concept in the Grand Duke. It is just an absolute riot. It's so it's certainly high in the dramatic stakes, but it's just, I would say that, as you'll probably discover from that synopsis, there's not really much in terms of like overall meaning or message, morals, anything that we can take away from it. It's more just like,
Here's funny stuff.
Apart from always bring a sausage roll.
Yes.
And always determine if aces are high or low.
Yes, when you do
Always.
this thing.
Always, bruv.
If I ever fight a statutory duel, I will do so.
like what are your impressions of that one? Like, especially I mean, really thinking about like the Grand Duke Utopia Limited Gondoliers, like compared to all the earlier ones, like what do you think of like the way these stories like evolved and like them as writers?
The concepts got a bit more. I rated the concepts higher as it went on, but I feel like that's pretty consistent.
What I'd like to do is just see if like maybe you get 2 each.
Okay.
Like if you just take a moment to look at your list and like think, I want to see this bit. Like something you want clarified, like something you really feel like you want to see. I don't think they're quite being true to the text.
No.
Because that's what I mean.
I would direct it completely.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Just that awkward. It's beautiful. That awkwardness and tension. I just feel like needs to be there.
Yeah.
He touches her way too easily.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It's
I love that moment, man.
and then that's a really good moment. Then
Let's have Ida. Let's
you
have
want
Ida.
Ida, do you?
Does it change my score though? Is the question.
Yeah, I'm not.
I don't think it does.
mine.
It doesn't, because I gave it a high thing for dramatic potential. And it doesn't really change anything.
Fighting him with a roast lamb.
The trouble is, with these opera companies, they don't really have the time or the expertise to actually do like proper like combat. And so that is what every production I've seen has been missing. And then they go back and forth for a bit, and then
Ooh.
Sing that note.
Goodness.
Just sing.
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, it's good. That it's a very, very dramatic moment. Like that is one. I absolutely love that piece. I love the Act 2 finale of Princess Ida. That is whoops. So, Aline has decided. Like, I don't care about my own feelings. I'm going to drink the potion to please Alexis.
All right.
Thine uttered will is sovereign law to me.
Very good, Vicky.
This is a oh dear.
Back away, back away.
Whoopsie daisy.
Back away.
Oh yay! You drank the potion.
Why are you holding that?
Hooray! Because they're in love now.
Yeah, but
Potions make them in love. Yeah, it's a powerful potion.
relax.
False one.
He's a definitely false one.
This is my production that I did in the summer of 2022.
Excellent stage pictures.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Sexy men. So the question is, when you two combine your scores,
Yeah.
what is the overall ranking of all of them? So,
Okay.
so add up all your marks and then
Okay.
combine it with Emma's mark and see what your combined
Interesting.
Who is the lowest score?
Who has the lowest?
Lowest for me.
You
The
make a note
worst
of the
GNS
First
opera.
one was
The Mikado.
No way.
52 for Mikado.
You're kidding
Whoa.
me. Mikado takes bottom
I dragged
spot.
it down. I dragged that one.
I mean,
Wow.
somebody sunk the Titanic.
Oh wow, yeah.
It was I.
Next.
Do you hear that one, everyone? The Mikado is the worst GNS opera.
Whoa! Next one up.
Alright then.
What's the next one up?
Grand Duke. Was
Grand
it
Duke,
55?
correct.
You hear that, guys?
You.
Grand Duke's at 55.
Wow! This is unexpected.
Then the next one I see is Yeomen of the Guard.
At 60.
At
60, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeoman.
That's
I think it's
okay.
Patience.
Patience
Okay,
is number 11.
Wow.
Then
10.
Next one, I've got Trial by Jury.
Trial by Jury. Number 9.
I believe that's 68, which I think is
Ruddigore.
Ruddigore.
Ruddy.
Oh wait, Tied.
Rudders.
Tied.
Oh,
Oh,
type.
time with Utopia.
Yeah.
So,
Ruddigore and
Ruddigore.
Utopia are tied.
Decide between yourselves which one you like better.
Ruddigore.
I'm just going to go with the one I scored the highest. Utopia.
Oh shit!
oh no!
Uh-oh.
It's close though.
Tiebreaker.
It's close. Wait, hold on. Where's that name?
Wait,
The
no,
question is, which one of you will give way to the other?
Which?
Ruddigore's the one with the paintings that come to life.
Yeah.
And
Fine,
whether
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Shall we have
Yeah.
You can do
Ruddigore on
Ruddigore.
top?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's say
it's
Utopia
fine.
comes
It's fine.
beneath Ruddigore.
Okay,
Yeah.
Utopia and Ruddigore number 7.
Yeah.
Ida takes the number 7 spot.
Brackets Castle Adamant.
Brackets Castle Adamant.
Yeah.
Number 6.
Next one.
what did we get for IOLANTHE?
I've got 72.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that IOLANTHE? Comes in
Yeah.
second. Alright, okay.
Number 5.
By the Sorcerer.
Sorcerer takes 5th spot.
73.
For.
Thespis.
Thespis.
No, don't say that. Don't say that to me. But I guess that makes sense. It makes sense, yeah.
Okay, number 3.
The Pirates of Penzance.
Yeah, Penzance.
Oh, yeah, it's
is true.
Penzance. It's
Penzance.
Number 2.
It's Pinafore.
Pinafore.
Which means the top spot is claimed by the Gondoliers.
So now that you've scored that and those scores are now out in the world, I'm just going to let you guys know that last week, like even just like a week ago on Facebook, there was a really solid discussions about why it is that Gondoliers is such a weaker story than all of the other ones.
Whoa! You guys are the
And we
guys loved it.
And we were really getting into it. I think because like most people find that like Act 2 is them just waiting to find out who's the king, and there's actually like not really too much going on, and there's not really any high stakes.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting that that's the one that you guys could have really gravitated towards. But the thing is, like, we need to listen to this because, like, if we want to get new people into GNS, we need to know kind of what kind of things appeal. And apparently, if the Mikado does not sell itself, because, you know, I'm starting to think that Mikado actually might be the best one.
Right.
And if the Mikado is not good at selling itself by its story, then
31 for
it's interesting. What do you think it was that put the Mikado at the bottom for you? Like, where did you find that was weak?
The lowest scores I gave it were concept and relevant for today.
This is interestingly what I was actually saying on a video a few weeks ago, that the Grand Duke and Mikado, to me, actually have the weakest, like, overall concept, because it's not clear what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I think that these guys as storytellers, they really picked up on that. So while we all love Mikado as like an amazing, exciting story with great characters, maybe it doesn't really have like a clear focus. And it's just like a piece that presents these great characters. So that's something to think about, you know? Like, so when you're directing the Mikado, be really sure where your focus is and what you're doing. Otherwise, it may come across as flabby. And the Grand Duke as well, I mean, because I suppose like the fashion today is to have theatre as kind of quite hard-hitting and meaningful, and the Grand Duke is anything but that. It's not at all meaningful. And so that's interesting. It doesn't really appeal to people because of that, but where the Grand Duke falls down, the Mikado also falls down in the same way. Isn't that interesting?
But yeah, because with the Grand Duke, I gave it 10 for topsy-turvy, for comedy.
Absolutely.
Like, so yeah, the same
It was just a
thing.
whole bunch of
It's school
funny
blow
stuff
on.
happening.
And then what came
it's
above
concepts.
that one? Was it Yeomen of the Guard?
Yeomen was 12th, yes.
Yeah.
Came next.
And I had only been saying a few weeks ago, like, how I consider Yeomen to be one of the weakest plots in terms of clarity. Like, it's got great characters in it, but it's very difficult to follow. There's lots of exposition, there's lots of tricky stuff. So while I know it might seem ludicrous to you guys that they marked them so lowly, you can actually see why that happened with Mikado, Grand Duke and Yeomen, because their plots are not really held together by one really strong concept, but one's like, I mean, Gondoliers, I don't know, maybe I think that's just like Dan's synopsis just sold it, and that may be like a thing. But the thing is, like, the other ones he marked high, like The Sorcerer, HMS Pinafore, Pirates of Penzance, these are the ones that are all held together by a really solid concept that's easy and accessible to people. And that is something important to recognise.
Their early work.
And I think for me, a lot of the weighting of the score was down to the last two categories.
Yeah.
Looking at it, its dramatic potential and meaning today kind of really sway. So things, I think that's where, for me, like the Mikado or things like that, kind of could work better. Is the potential for dramatic. Like investment and also saying something.
So like not treating it like something frivolous.
Yeah.
Like going into the Mikado and the Grand Duke, really focusing on like real human emotion and not being
like even
too
in the
silly
little
with
one
it.
we saw, the little portion of the Mikado that we saw, just in terms of bringing out, just focusing more on the emotions of it and those little moments, I think is so important. Because it's beautiful. It could be beautiful.
I know that I've learned so much about that, but the most interesting thing is the fact that Mikado and Grand Duke were the two that I called out as having no meaningful concept about 2 weeks ago, and those two came bottom. Isn't that interesting? Whereas people would never place Mikado and Grand Duke in the same tier.
Yeah, right.
Like, people usually love the Mikado and think the Grand Duke is awful.
Right.
But like, that is interesting because people don't tend to like Utopia and Grand Duke. They tend to think they're like not good. The ones that people love are, I mean, thing is, the Pirates of Penzance is the most popular. Performers don't tend to like Pinafore because there's not many parts for women in it.
Right.
Trauma Jury, everyone kind of thinks is cool. Sorcerer is a bit. Patience, people think the dialogue is brilliant.
Interesting.
IOLANTHE is a lot of people's favourite. They think that the mixture of fairies and politics.
Well, Midsummer's.
Really cool. Princess Ida is like known for its really good music.
Yeah, right.
The Mikado is known as just being like just one of the best in general. Like it's just a really, really good one. RUDDIGORE is like a big favourite with like aficionados because they just love the characters so much. Yeomen of the Guard is a big favourite of many people because it's just got such good music, but also it's so tragic at the end. Gondoliers is known for its good music, but not for its good plot. And then Utopia Limited and Grand Duke are kind of ignored a little bit, and it's up to people like me to try and make people like them. But yeah,
Utopia, I think
that is it for today. So thank you,
These guys.
Spencer and Emma, and hopefully in the next year or so, the next few years, we can show you each of these operas on a stage.
Yeah.
And now that you know about them, so if you say if there's one that intrigues you the most, like which one you want to go see, that's Gondoliers for you, is it?
Yes.
I feel like it's THESPIS for me.
Fair enough.
I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like it's THESPIS, or depending on the production of MIKADO.
Yeah,
The MIKADO.
yeah.
So I do think it has potential.
You heard it here first. The MIKADO has potential.
I would also